Hey guys, I guess there's a part 2, but why is there a part 2, Ted? I thought bad things happened at the end of part 1. Bad things that I don't want to spoil if you somehow clicked on part 2 before playing the game or listening to part 1. So if you haven't done either of those things, maybe leave the video. I'll give you a second.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So the world ended. Why are we still here?
Well, we have a fever dream about our mom, and she says at that point she's like, you have to not be a dick and work with people you don't want to. Is that it, or is that later? I don't really remember.
No, I think that was that dream. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it was you have baby hero, and he's like, I had a fight with Gemma, and mom's like, get over yourself, honey, and you're like, okay. And then you wake up and you're a fish.
Yeah, oh my gosh, the fish. First of all, that fish is precious.
It was such a great way to start off, because it's such a depressing scene right beforehand. Like, we were talking about the feeling of hopelessness and whatnot that you get in that scene with Mortigan at Yggdrasil. And so you have that little breather for things to calm down a bit when you talk to your mom, and then you wake up and you're a fish, which is just the perfect kind of comic relief at that point, I think, because it's so out there. Like, that's not anything you would ever expect, like, I think in any game, you know? So, but it's an Earthbound ripoff because nobody else can do surrealist humor ever, right?
And I love when, like, you wake up, how it starts in, like, a first-person view and you're surrounded by fish, and the shark's best.
Shark is best guy.
Why can't we recruit the shark, damn it?
Because he has to sell stuff at the shop.
But yeah, and then it goes to, you swim, like, and you look at yourself in the mirror, and you're this precious, adorable blue fish with your belt on your body. And then it says 11 has lost the power of the luminary. And I was like, wait, what? And then I think I was texting you and I'm like, I'm a fish. And you're like, check your skill tree. And you just lose the entire portion of your skill grid that has all the luminary powers. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Well, I like that for quite a number of reasons. Like, for the first off,
I love it too. It just pissed me off in the moment. But it was great.
But it's just like, for one, having him actually take away your skills is such a cool way to integrate story and gameplay, which I love for the moment. Dragon Quest XI does that a lot with the skill system as well. Like, you can see it as early as when you recruit Eric, where for some reason he has access to all these skills, but you just can't use them for some reason. Yeah. It's weird. It's like he's held back by something, but you don't know what, you know? And with this, it's just like, to really show how helpless you are, you lose access to the luminary skills, which are easily the best skills that you can get. Like, when I was playing the game, I easily, during that first half, put most of my skills into the luminary skills. So,
absolutely.
Because Zap is an amazing skill in Dragon Quest XI, and I spammed the hell out of it. And
getting pep up, the ability to get instant pep was, like, once I saw that was an option, because I think it's a hidden one, but once I saw that was an option, I was like, I'm getting that. It's expensive.
Yeah, and even just convenient things like holy protection so that monsters don't bother you, you know, and stuff like that are all in the luminary tree. So you're far more likely to have put a lot more skills into that as opposed to swords or great swords for the hero. But thankfully you still keep the skill points.
Yes.
So which is also one thing I really like about it is that it gives you a chance to try out the other stuff that you've maybe haven't explored as much as the hero. Like, if you haven't tried great swords yet, well, now is your time to give it a shot and see if you like it, you know, and stuff like that. So I really think that that's cool, not only in that it forces you to try new things, and it makes you feel helpless, not just in a story sense, but in a, oh crap, now I can't even use my best stuff sense as well. Also, you're all alone and are a fish, so, you know, that doesn't help things at all. But yeah, just the fish being so out there and WTF it's one of the highlights of the game for me, is just waking up and suddenly you are a fish, you know.
How many
And
years before they make a Fish 11 plushie? Because I would buy 10 of those.
I don't know if they've made many plushies of the 11 exclusive stuff yet.
Yeah,
I hope
it's also
they do.
it's also just that it's a spoiler. Like the fact that it exists is a spoiler. But it's
Well, to be
so
fair, they've
cute.
also made Final Form Sorrow plushies. So,
yeah, but that game's like 20 years old. So that's what I'm saying. Like, are they gonna wait 5 years and make this? And he's got the luminary symbol on his belly.
But if we're thinking about it canonically, shouldn't he not have the luminary skill on his body if he lost the power of the luminary?
That's what I said. I was like, wait, I'm still the luminary, right? And you're like, no, you're the dark spawn.
Yeah,
It's like,
gosh,
oh.
man, you went to Yggdrasil and spawned all this darkness, so, you know.
Dark spawn confirmed.
Dark spawn. The days where I call you Darkspawn are now over, Darkspawn.
Yeah, did we say in the last part how I want to do a second if I'm going to do a second playthrough, I'm going to try to name the hero Darkspawn?
I think we did,
yeah.
but it needs to be repeated because that's amazing.
I need to figure out if the game will let me.
So anyway,
you find out stuff has been really bad while you've been a fish.
Yeah, so we just kind of like lucked out, and Queen Nautica just kind of happened to find us and keep us safe by turning us into a fish, because otherwise we would have died. So that's cool. But then she takes us to her super secret magical ball chamber, and shows us what's been going on in the world, and shit ain't good.
Yeah, Nautica looks mostly the same, but occasionally like things will shake, and everyone you talk to is like, it's clear things are not good, but then you go with Queen Marina and you get to see like how bad it is, and it was worse than I was expecting. Like, I mean, you know, like I think fun fact I don't know if I've told Ted this even, but the first playthrough I found of Brain Scratch was actually Final Fantasy VI, and I think you guys pointed out how like, you know, the world ruin happens, but like not much really changes. But
no, not like the layout of the world map is different, and like it's implied that things are bad, but most of the towns are the same.
Yeah, like a couple towns are a little like crappier, and a bunch of kids lost their parents, and now Terra takes care of them. But you know, this is like, you see the world and it's like, oh, this is not good.
Like one of the first things you see when you look through the crystal ball is like a little girl left all alone, trapped in a church, like about to get killed by monsters, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so.
And some dashing hero with purple hair just barely manages to save her. I wonder who that could be. Yeah, it really brings in the, like, it really sets the mood. And I mean, granted, the comic relief of being the fish, I think, really helps. Like, it doesn't feel like when you first see it and you see your fish, you're laughing because it's so out there. But even though you are a fish when you're hearing all this, I didn't feel like that lowered the gravitas, if that made any sense. Like, it still felt like a big deal.
It's still, especially, like, yeah, looking into the crystal ball also, like, you weren't looking at the fish.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely seeing the fish has this weird combination of, like, I can't believe I'm a fish, but also, like, it's like this laughing, I can't believe I'm a fish, and at the same time, this, like, I'm a fish, how am I gonna do anything?
And then, one thing that I also want to mention is, so you mentioned the shaking, and turns out that one of Mortigan's big bad guys is, like, literally breaking down the force field that Marina put up to keep them from dying, and, like, Alizarin's one of my favorite of the big bosses in the second half of the game because of how threatening he is. Because of that, like, he's like literally banging down the door to try to get in. Yeah. And as he's doing that, the queen is talking to you about how everything has gone to crap, but we still need you. Mm-hmm. And that speech there, like, I don't know what it was about it specifically, but that really hit home for me. Mm-hmm. You know, like, especially like the "you can do it, we believe in you" at the end. As corny as it might sound, like when we're talking about it in a discussion, it's so sincere when you hear it that it honestly does mean a lot, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, is the scene with the seer at this point yet, or is that later?
Oh,
I think that's later.
It's later, yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry. We might forget the order of things because this part of the game is relatively non-linear. So we might jump around a bit, especially after this next coming part. So we apologize, but we want to make sure that we cover all the important bits.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think
anyway.
I think what happens is she sends you Alizarin is going to break in. And so she's like, okay, I'm going to send you up and I'm going to use my magic to make sure essentially you're caught and like pulled to shore so you can retake your human form. Oh, that was a funny scene, but I think what you're talking about with the seer is the dream after you're pulled to shore.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, that one, yeah.
But yeah, that scene was really funny because you're a fish and then you see something, you're still a fish and you see something sparkling in the water and you're like, it's like you really want to eat it. And so you do, and you get pulled up by a fisherman, and then you turn back into a human, in my case, in full armor, in his ship. He's just like, what?
And then you sink and die. Yeah, so, the scene is immediately after that, because, like, you're passed out,
I might be wrong, but I think you get the scene with the Seers around this, I think.
Yeah, because, you get pulled, like I mean, it doesn't really matter when we have it, so, because the Seer's kind of a plot point that's sort of left hanging in the second half, so it doesn't really matter when we talk about it that much anyway. So let's just do it now, because we're thinking about it. Like, that scene is really, really funny, when the Seer is like, oh, wait, do you not recognize me? Oh, well, I have many forms, and then it just turns into, like a couple of different people, and then a dog, and stuff like that, which is also great, too.
Yeah.
But, I don't remember I remember that the dialogue for that point was also relatively touching as well. Mm-hmm. And I think it was immediately after you got pulled up because you're fishing with them. Remember?
Yeah. The Seers fishing, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really remember what he says to you even at that point. It's been a while.
I don't either. I think he was also quite vague about some things. I think he was on purpose vague.
Yeah.
But it is pretty. So yeah, I really liked the way the game was bookended is the wrong term because we're not at the end. But how you are pulled to shore in Emerald Coast, which is
which is towards the beginning of the game.
Exactly. Yeah, and you get to see how different the world is.
Oh yeah. So it's also at this point where you talk to somebody and he's like, look out for those enemies with the red eyes. Like, I can't believe slimes are giving me this much trouble.
Yep.
And so at this point in the game, you're introduced to a bunch of new enemies because a lot of the old enemies that you faced in the beginning versions of the game, in the beginning areas of the game, now have what are called vicious forms, where they have red eyes and greatly increased stats. Mm-hmm. What did you think about the introduction of the vicious enemies?
I actually really liked that. I thought it was a really clever mechanic. I don't think... And none of the Dragon Quest games, I don't think any of the Dragon Quest games we've played up until now have had something like that. I can't speak to 10, and I can't speak to all the spin-offs, but I actually really
They would only ever bring back an enemy type with a recolor.
Yep.
Basically.
I really liked it as a mechanic because I thought it led to more variety of enemies, and it let the areas keep sort of their individual character, where okay, there would be some new enemies in a given area, new enemies that weren't vicious versions, but you would also have the vicious versions of previous enemies. So I thought it was cool. I didn't think it felt like it's easy to say it's lazy, but I liked that rather than okay, now we just have a a red slime that's everywhere. No, I liked that there were she slimes in the region where there had been she slimes, and there were blue slimes in the region that had blue slimes. But
I think it could have felt lazy if there weren't as many enemies in the game already. Because I think if you don't count vicious enemies, there's something like 400 enemies.
That sounds
and if you
about
do,
right.
It's something like 700 or whatever. Because not every enemy gets a vicious version.
Yeah, I can say for a fact, because part of what I've been doing in post-game is trying to fill out the bestiary as best I can. There are 662 enemies at the very end of the game, so that's including every enemy in the game.
And not every enemy in the game has a vicious version, so
yeah.
there are more enemies than there are vicious variations. So, you know, even if it were half, that's still 300 enemies. That's plenty of enemies. You know, it's not like there's a lack of variety. I agree in that it made it feel like the Lord of Shadows had corrupted the world that it used to be. You know, like, if that makes sense, because it's not like all the slimes just disappeared when the world went to hell. It's just they're still there, and now they're on like evil juice or whatever, and a lot stronger, which I think adds to the tension of that this part of the game is trying to give to you. You know, it's just like, this is a much less inviting world than it used to be. Which I think works. So I think at this point we are told to go to what is called the Last Bastion, because that's where basically everybody who's not dead has decided to hole up. At least in the Heliodor region, I should say, because Heliodor is like busted.
Yes.
Like, in the second half of the game, you can't even go into the town proper at all. It's that broken. Like, this is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but you do eventually go into the castle through a back door, but the town is completely demolished and everybody's there is basically dead, which is fun.
Or fled. Yeah,
dead or fled. That's a rhyme.
But yeah, and you're told, like, there's this great, like, the hero that lives protects the Last Bastion. Like, he's this fantastic dude. You know, go to the Last Bastion and the hero will take care of you. And I'm like, but I'm the hero.
No, you're the Darkspawn. Remember?
Oh.
Get it straight. Gosh.
Oh.
Yeah. So you make your way there, and funny enough, the Last Bastion's where Cobblestone used to be. You know, that's
actually. Okay, I actually really liked how the Last Bastion looked. I thought it was a really, like, it sort of was an interesting combination of, like, people struggling, but it sort of also, like, spoiler for what we're going to talk about later, it also became a place of hope.
Yes, I think that's a great way to put it, because it's people trying to make the best out of what they have, and what they have is a town literally destroyed by the people that they're trying to fight now, and they have to build it into something that they can hold out in, which I think is...
like, it's very, like, put together, cobbled together even.
Good one. Because Cobblestone, is that, like, what you were going for?
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, with I'm thinking about, like, with all the wooden, like, everything's built out of, like, wooden logs, and there's a lot of, like, tents and that sort of, like, you know, quickly constructed buildings. What I find really sad, actually, is when talking to people, they talk about how they're struggling to find food.
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like, you know, it's one of those things where you're playing a video game, like, and you, as a character, you don't have to eat, but it's always kind of sobering when when you really think about, like, like, where are these people getting food, and, like...
Because it's not like they can really farm, because the Demon King blotted out the sun, so that's not really happening. And it's not like there's probably not livestock to spare, I can imagine.
There's not much land that they can, you know.
And we need those cows to tell us the weather, so we aren't eating those.
But yeah, it was really interesting seeing the town, and, like, and how I liked how the environment of the town could be these two things. It could be, like, this shelter where people were barely hanging on, and then later it became a place of sort of hope.
And also, I think this part of the game juggles the tone so well, because I think hope is one of the major themes of the game as a whole. Because if you, especially with a couple of later scenes, you know, like, trying to hold on to your hope in this desolate world is a major theme going on. And so, balancing that the hope and hopelessness, I think, is really important here, because when you think that the world's at its lowest, you realize that your family and friends from Cobblestone aren't dead. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
'Cause
that you find out that everyone from Cobblestone survived, and I think this is when you're explicitly told that Jasper wanted, like, basically, I think they pretty explicitly said Jasper had all of the people of Cobblestone line up and ordered his men to, like, just execute them in cold blood.
Yeah, and then Hendrik was like, no, don't do that. That's bad.
Hendrik was like, that's not needed. We'll put them in the dungeon, but we're not going to execute them.
Yeah, and funny enough, it looks like that dashing hero with the purple hair was Hendrik. Oh my gosh, man. Wow. And he's very not stoked to see you. Like, he's not angry, but he's like, he's like, oh, you're here. And then he just kind of goes along with what he's doing.
He's like, you survived. Yeah, I was really, because obviously if you have any memory of what Hendrik's model looks like, it is no surprise that Hendrik is the hero of Heliodor.
I mean, they do give him a new outfit, at least.
What did you think of Hendrik's outfit, by the way?
Honestly, I prefer the armor.
I think he looks derp in his outfit. Yeah,
I guess it. I feel like the armor would be super helpful, when you're trying to defend the town, as opposed to, like, going with the scarf and whatnot. But, like, it's fine. It's not bad. It certainly is more friendly. It's more friendly, which is, I think, important for this part of the game. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I was really I was like, oh, I'm gonna run into Hendrik. Like, what is he gonna say? Because there's a couple different ways this can go, and he went, like, really cold, you know? He was kind of, like, very, like, wary and cold.
Which I think makes sense, because to him, there's more important things to be dealt with right now, you know? Because monsters try to break into the town on a daily basis, so... Yeah. Which, as
you find out, like, 2 seconds later.
Oh, yeah, because the king's also there, too, and...
the king's there.
And he's also not super welcoming either, which is
he's at least apologetic.
But I kind of wasn't like a whole big point of that point of the game too is when you find your mom and talk to her, she's like, get over yourself, you need to work together with these guys in order to save the world. But I'm like, but they're douchebags. You know?
Mom.
Like, they're not... I think the big thing is that they're not really apologetic until... For a while. It takes them a long time to be like, yo, we fucked up. You know?
Yep.
Like, the king talks about how bad things are, so he shows remorse, but he's not, like, explicit about the harm he's done to you, you know? Like, and your friends as well is the big thing. So... Yeah, and I think that's important because it shows that you're, you know, like, you might be the luminary, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people still trust you, or that you just being there alone is enough to make people think that everything's going to be okay, you know?
Yeah, it's not... Yeah, and I forget what your... What's your title at that point? It's
I forgot to check the titles for most of the game, unfortunately.
Yeah, there was your title changed, and it's like you're not. Oh yeah, you know what you are. After Marina talks to you, you're you know what it is? Okay, when you're the fish, you're Luminary Adrift. I remember that. And then after Marina talks to you and, like, sends you up, you become a Spark of Hope, I think.
Oh, okay.
At some point, it might be a little bit later, but you do become a Spark of Hope. I think it actually might be after the events in the Last Bastion finish, but you do become a Spark of Hope.
Yeah, but you're not at that point yet because you're still fucked up about, you know, getting your power literally ripped out of you. So, you know,
it's like you're not. There's also this feeling of, like, you're not special anymore. Like,
yeah, which I think really is nailed home by all of these events here. So you talk to the king and he's like, yo, you're a sword arm, we need you to help, basically is what he says. And monsters are about to attack, and then you have the scene where, you know, monsters starts trying to swarm the Last Bastion, and all of the whoever's left from the Heliodor army, and also whoever from Cobblestone can pick up a weapon, are set to go and fight outside and keep the monsters from coming in. And those monsters, well, they're not super hard at that point in the game because you're probably like level 50 at least by that point, or 40 if I remember correctly. You're relatively high level, but you're alone is the big thing. And many of your crowd clearing moves are on the Luminary skill branch. So,
oh, screw you, I had great swords. Great swords as Helichopter.
Oh, you asshole. Damn it.
Great swords are so good.
Yeah, but you can have 2 swords. 2 swords are more better than 1 sword. Okay?
I had a big sword.
Oh, okay. You know what? We're going to ask Gemma whether she would prefer 2 swords or 1 really big sword. All right, and we'll see what she thinks. Okay. Anyway, so I liked the defend the town scene. You know.
Yeah, and can you? I think I fought everyone, but if you try to go to Hendrik before you fight everyone, does he like tell you to help out the other people?
He's like, I'm fine. You don't need to help someone who needs the help. Is basically what he says.
I'm fine. I'm a big tough Hendrik. I have an axe.
Oh, I'm Hendrik, and I'm so special. I'm the hero, Eleodor. So, but eventually, after you save everyone else, Hendrik is kind of overwhelmed, and you fight together with him in order to save everyone, pretty much.
Can I say I really liked how Hendrik had, like, from the start, even when he's AI controlled, he has the paladin abilities. He has forbearance, which he like.
You don't get to learn until post game. Yeah.
Yeah, no one gets to learn that for a while. He has forbearance. He has he can heal you. He will he takes a lot of blows for you and will heal you. And it was cool that, like, in you know, as much as he was kind of being standoffish with me in cutscene, that in battle he was being a knight. You know, his conduct in battle was that of a knight, protecting me, you know, healing me.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so at that point, like, the king is very happy that you helped, but he's like, okay, things are going to be bad until we get the castle back, because that's where... So, did they mention the Spectral Sentinels until this point, if I remember correctly?
I don't remember if they mentioned it by name, but basically they said that's where the monsters are coming from, like, you have to cut them off at the source, or they're just going to send more.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's all I remember them saying.
So, then you start sneaking into the castle, and Hendrik joins your party. Now,
yes, and you can't control him at this point, though.
No, you can. You can control him as after the scene where you, after the fight, the scene where you join forces in the defend the town sequence. I think after you start to go towards Heliodor Castles when he joined your party. I don't
think so. I could very well be wrong, but I didn't think he joined the party until after you cleared out the castle, because I thought he was just still your AI party member. But again, I would
have to double check, honestly. Actually, you know what? I can look it up. I can look it up right now. Because I have a screenshot from that point. So.
Okay. But it is cool, having regardless, the idea that you're teaming up with Hendrik is pretty cool, and I think he's I think the king basically orders both of you to do it, and Hendrik
and
isn't
neither of you
super
are happy about it.
Yeah,
but I think one thing, unfortunately, we were both spoiled to the fact that Hendrik joins our party.
Yeah, thanks Japanese Twitter. For me, it was someone posted a video. Someone on a Japanese Twitter account I was looking at that was posting a bunch of DQ stuff. I think this particular Twitter account did a lot of artwork, and all people.
For me, it was the fact that I was looking up all the different dance animations, and since he joins the party, he has one.
his derpy ass dance, it's so good.
Yeah, so but I mean, I did kind of have the feeling that it might have happened before then.
I think we called it in either a private conversation or in the Game Explain video we did 2 years before the game came out. We were like, guy in black armor is gonna join the party, guy in white armor is just evil.
Yeah.
Before we even knew what their names were, we called it. But yeah, so it sucked that I was spoiled to like this is a thing. He's gonna join the party, but at the same time, I didn't know what the circumstances would be or when. So it was cool finally seeing like, okay, what makes him come around.
So you definitely get Hendrik to join your party before you beat the boss. I don't know if it's like immediate. I think it might actually be after the boss fight.
Yeah, you know what, Ted? It's after the boss fight because he uses forbearance to protect you during the boss fight.
Yeah,
because that's after he gives his little speech.
Which makes sense because he doesn't warm up to you. It takes the whole dungeon for him to warm up to you because you have a lot of different conversations throughout that whole thing, and you learn a lot about Hendrik's past during it. So
11 has very engaging conversations, I'm sure. He's a good listener. That's like one of my favorite lines of when you go into the party chat, the characters will like say something when you pick them, and Veronica sometimes will say, "You want to talk? That's not like you."
Oh yeah, with their own like voice clips, yeah.
Yes, with voice clips, yeah. But yeah, so you sneak into Heliodor Castle through the sewers in the dungeon.
Yeah. Which is and you can fight the Black Dragon. Oh yeah, that's
that was cool.
He's really easy. Because he becomes a random encounter for like after like in the next area you're supposed to go to, he's a random encounter. So I was kind of hoping it'd be like a really tough optional mini boss, but no, it's just like a slightly harder than average normal encounter, which is
poor Hendrik is probably like 11. Why are we fighting this dragon? ...
Yeah.
Very well.
You get an achievement for it too, which is also great. Because they know that you want to do that. So, that's great. But I like the different stuff that you can find when you're exploring the castle, because there's a lot of different things. Like, Hendrik will talk to you about, like, where the different stuff's supposed to be hidden in the sewers and things like that. And how you must recognize this place when you were thrown in here and stuff like that, And especially cool was the scenes in the castle where you find one of the Yggdrasil roots, which you might remember from when you were exploring the castle earlier, like at the beginning of the game. But that was before you knew that you could touch them, because you don't learn that until after you escape with Eric. And then you touch it, and you get a scene with Hendrik and Jasper when they're babos, when they're little babs. And they're fighting, and this is one of, a lot of this section is about Hendrik and Jasper, and we're probably going to be talking about them a lot. But one of the first thing that pops up when you see it is Hendrik and Jasper are sparring in the courtyard, and Jasper falls over, and he says, "Brute force wins the day again." And you really get the sense of how bitter he really is,
And this is like they're probably like 12 or something. They're pretty young, but like they clearly have been training. But yeah, you already see sort of this like the start of a rivalry between them and you get the feeling from how they speak and their expressions that for Hendrik this is a friendly rivalry, a like pushing one another to do better rivalry. But for Jasper, it's something far more like
it's a serious. Why can't I win?
Yeah, this is like I can't forgive myself for losing feeling for Jasper.
Yeah, exactly. And so Hendrik is like kind of he's reminded of because at that point I think they talk about like there's multiple flashbacks, and one of them is like they're talking about the Shield of Heliodor, where the king is supposed to give that to his most trusted knight or whatever, and they were gonna sneak into his room and take it, basically.
Yeah, they were gonna, and Jasper explicitly says to Hendrik, like, we can sneak in through this. There's a cupboard in the pantry, and you can move it and go straight into the king's quarters, and that helps 11 and Hendrik in the present to figure out how to get into the part of the castle that they couldn't get into before, because they're trying to get to like, is it the throne room?
Yeah, they're trying to get to the second floor is the thing. But part of why I like it is he says like something about the punishment like that they got for doing it. And
Yep.
it's like, and it really stuck with me. And it's at about that point, I think, after you see, I think it's after you open up the hidden passageway, when Hendrik finally says, I've been bad to you. Please forgive me. And he kneels down to you. And it's like, it took him a long time, but it's finally does feel so sincere when he does that, you know?
One of my favorite parts of that scene was actually when, at the point where you found the cupboard, you push it aside to reveal the hidden staircase, and Hendrik takes a step, so he's past you, so his back is facing you, and the camera is such that it's sort of cutting off part of his face, and he says to you, unprompted, and like, you know, obviously you don't, you know, the hero doesn't talk, but there's no reason for him to say this, but he tells you, I never made it here that night. The king caught me sneaking out of my quarters, and I had to polish all the armor in the armory as punishment. Jasper and I always got up to so much, like, we got in so much trouble in those days, but it was also like the most, like, very happy days for me.
Yeah.
And the fact that he let you in, like, that was him letting you in. That was him sharing part of his past that he had no reason to share to you, and like, he didn't say any of this before when you were out by the Yggdrasil route and first saw this. But it shows that he's warming up to you.
I also like it is in that just because you're on the same side now doesn't mean that he's friendly with you as well, because there's still a lot of animosity there towards you. Like, he doesn't understand why Jasper did what he did. You know, he doesn't understand what happened to the king, and he's certainly, like, you know, he had it in his mind that you were the Darkspawn, and that doesn't just change immediately just because, you know, he found out that Jasper was a dickwad, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he clearly has a lot of, like, processing to do, and has been clearly, like, I think he's been doing it over the course of the months in which you were fish, you know, about the fact that he was unwittingly serving the Demon Lord. That
for years, decades.
Jasper
even.
was knowingly serving the Demon Lord.
Yeah.
That Jasper tried to have him killed.
Yeah.
And now he finally understands, like, why. So I think you see that, like, those changes don't happen overnight.
Well, I mean, they technically do happen over the course of a night, but it's organic.
Yes.
So, we know what you're talking. Yeah. So, oh yeah. Also, I love at this point you discover some of the little books and stuff hidden around the castle, which gives some character and some kind of bittersweet sentimentality to the area. Like, for example, if you sneak into the king's throne room, which you couldn't do because there was a guard there beforehand, if you read the books there, you realize that there's like a folder about a meeting that he was supposed to be at, and he's drawing pictures of cakes on the sidelines.
Yes, I remember that.
And then, because Japan, and apparently you can't enjoy cake and be manly at the same time. I don't get that. Whatever. Oh, and also the Jade, because Jade's room was also off limits as well whenever you were in Heliodor. You go in there, and then there's a picture of her, like her childhood drawings, and it's just like, these people look like matchsticks, and underneath it says, "My daddy and me."
Yes.
Which is just cute as well.
Yeah.
There's also some really, really cool stuff if you look in Hendrik and Jasper's rooms, too. Like, Jasper has some sketchy books in there about different things, and you can steal Hendrik's boxer shorts, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Which, you know, I'm sure he's not wondering at all what we're doing with those, you know. It's just you get to explore a lot more of the castle and get a lot more. I think it humanizes Heliodor a little bit, because you've been kind of trained to view them as the bad guys, you know, whereas they're still people, and most of the people in Heliodor had no idea about what was going on. It was just the king and Jasper, you know. So yeah, so I thought all that was great. And then you get the boss fight, which That scene is so good.
Yes. Well, you run into Jasper, and I was thinking, are we gonna fight Jasper? But no. But the scene is still amazing. Yeah.
You walk into the throne room, and he's sitting on the throne, with this ridiculous but great outfit on, I need to mention, with the feathers and everything, and he's got the demon-y pale skin and whatnot. So he's, like, full-blown evil at this point. Like, not that anybody's surprised by that, but it's clear that whatever humanity was left in him before is pretty much gone at this point, because he's basically become a monster, like a literal, like literal and metaphorical monster. And so he talks, and like Hendricks like, "Why, Jasper? Why did you do it?" And then he starts flying around the room talking about how he's finally got the better, like, not even just that he's finally got the better of Hendrik, but how somebody actually appreciates his ability, which I think it hit me a lot, because it didn't sound like he was tired of, like, oh, I need to be the best one. It's just like he's already confident in the fact that he is a skilled warrior and strategist and all that kind of stuff. It's more that he wanted to be acknowledged, I guess, is the best way to put it, which I don't think you see very often in this kind of villain.
Or I would say not just acknowledged, but appreciated and valued.
Yes, for sure. Because
you also get a brief flashback that Hendrik was given the Shield of Heliodor.
He was also promoted first. Like, Jasper, it's a minor detail, but Jasper's still in his normal uniform when Hendrik is having his ceremony when he's getting that shield. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's just really well done in all sorts of ways. And it's also, the voice acting, I think, is really what sells it, is the big thing. Because Jasper's voice actor, I think, is among the best in the game. He does an amazing job at coming across as entitled but not whiny, and I think is the thing. Like, you can understand his frustration while still not feeling sorry for him, I guess. Does that make sense? Because Jasper's sympathetic, but not to the point where you agree with him. Yeah. Like, it's complicated, but it's part of what I think makes him a really good villain, and one of my favorites in Dragon Quest at this point. And then a skeleton shows up. Yeah. Which was a little random, I will say, when, you have this really emotional scene, and then, like, Skeletor comes up and is like, "Ha ha ha! I am the Spectral Sentinel, and I'm here to destroy you, He-Man. I mean, Hendrik." Yeah. And, like, the boss fight's fine. Like, I mean, it's not particularly hard or anything like that. Yeah. And the design's effective. It's just a little... I would have preferred a Jasper round 1, I guess. Or that's technically, like, round 3 by this point. But you know what I mean.
But I think also, like, power level-wise...
Oh, yeah, no, we wouldn't
couldn't have beaten him.
No, that's true. Like, no. Like, I don't know what they would have done to make it maybe a little bit less random.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I don't love the way they handled it, but I'm also, it's not immediately obvious to me what a better solution would have been.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the scene on its own has so much merit anyway that, just, okay, we need to have a boss fight, and he was late, so Jasper was covering for him. Still works, I think, as well. But anyway, you beat him up, and then you find out he took one of your marbles, so you get it back, which is, cool. And you bring light back to the sky and stuff, and that's also pretty awesome, too. Yeah. Like, the scene where you're back in Cobblestone, and everybody's, like, really happy that you've brought hope back to the world is a really touching scene as well. And Gemma's still super whiny about you having to leave, but, like... Do you want to live in a literal shack for the rest of your life, sweetheart? No, thanks.
Girl, right. I can't be tied down.
No, I'm a luminary. I gotta do... No, not anymore. I'm not.
Oh, too soon.
Yeah, but at that point, this is when Hendrik, like, fully trusts you, I think, is the thing. Because, like, you see him smile. Like, I was looking at my screenshots, because I I took a screenshot. There we go. I took a screenshot when Hendrik joined your party, and he smiles. And that's like one of the first times in the game you see a real, genuine smile from him.
Yeah.
I don't think he even has like a smirk like you might see Jasper.
Yeah, Jasper
early.
smirks. Hendrik doesn't smirk, I feel like.
Yeah, no, this is like the first time in the game you truly see Hendrik smile. Maybe outside of the flashbacks he might smile there. So, yeah, I think it's just a really well done scene. And then, you know, you're like, this whole section is also relatively linear because of course it is. It's your introduction back into the world. So they needed to railroad you a little bit until you had like more than one party member. But then at this point, the world opens up dramatically, which I also think is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, actually, like, speaking of the world opening up, it's at this point in the game where you actually get a couple of different options about what you want to do next.
Because what's interesting is you don't have the boat.
Nope.
And we never had a way to fly. So we're traveling on foot/horse. But because of how the Yggdrasil fell and stuff became a mess, paths that were blocked off before are no longer blocked off. So you are able
but
to
also
get to
stuff
areas
that was open before are now closed.
Yep.
As well. Like, I don't think you can get to oh god, what was connected? Yeah, so you can go to, I think, like, Puerto Valor without having to, the Puerto Valor and Champs Sauvages areas without having to go the long way around, basically, I think is what it is.
Yep,
So, what the king tells you to do is to go to Mount Angry-Law, because there were people there who never liked Heliodor anyway, and so they'd be willing to help you out.
And I think I never tried to go to Angri-La before this, but like I think it's blocked off by Heliodor soldiers.
Yeah, they're like Sir Jasper said to not to let anybody through, and you're just not allowed to go through. I'm honestly interested to see what happens if you try to go, if you like clip your way past or something like that. You know, like what would happen if you try to go into that area in Act 1, because I don't know if there's an Act 1 version of Angry-Law, you know?
It might just soft lock the game.
Yeah. If it doesn't just flat out crash it, you know. But anyway, so you have a couple of options at this point. And you can do things a lot out of order at this point. Like, the game wants you to go to Mount Angry-Law, which is where Rab is. You don't know that's where Rab is at first, but that is where Rab is. But you can also go to the Champs Sauvages and do Sylvando's side quest first, which is what I did, actually. I was like, you know, screw you. I think you can also make your way to Hado by this point, and Hado and Gondolia, and get started. No, you can't go to Hado or Gondolia until after you have Rab. I know that for sure. But, so you basically get to do some stuff in whatever order you want. I went and did Sylvando first, but in order of story progression, it makes more sense to do Sylvando second, because if you do him first, his scenes are kind of split in half. So, let's talk about Angry-Law and Rab's stuff first, I think.
Yeah.
That makes more sense to me. So, yeah. And you did that first when you were doing your run of the game anyway, right?
Yeah, I just went to Angri-La. But I think for me it was partly also I was like, oh, there was this whole area I never went to. Okay. Let me check that out.
Yeah, and I mean, re-exploring the world you've already been in is a huge part of the second half of the game. So I think having a completely new area early on is also important, so it doesn't feel like you're just rehashing stuff as well. So, there's a mountain, and you gotta climb a big mountain. It's very tall. I do like the sequence when you're climbing the tower, the mountain too, because I think that's the first time you get to use the Dragon Rider mounts, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
And they're the best ones because you basically just get to fly, which, you know, is cool. And there's a couple of really cool dungeons later on in the game centered around that, and also it's just a cool way to there's also some secrets hidden about too, which is also neat. Like, because they'll start introducing new mounts into old areas in the second half of the game, so you're able to reach parts of sections of the overworld you weren't able to reach before, which I just think is neat, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, so you go to Angry Law, and then it's your kind of like monk area, so, you know, there's all sorts of like spiritual stuff, and you find out that, oh, the people of Dundrasil had this great connection with the people on Mount Angry. Penglai is what it's called, right?
Penglai, yeah.
Penglai's the name of the town, and Angry Law is the name of the mountain, if I remember correctly.
I think it's the opposite.
Okay, well, whatever. So, you find out that the monks there have been waiting for you because you were supposed to come down there in order to train when you were a teenager and shave your head, which, you know, everybody always comments about how great the hero's haircut is. And, you know, it's like, I like the hero's design, but the hair's nothing special.
I don't think it's the haircut. I think it's that he has really nice hair. Like, it's soft and lustrous
and people are, yeah, but all these random NPCs are talking about it. They're just, like, going around and stroking his hair. Like, that's weird.
Well, you know. He's
So, are you a hair feeler? Do you just walk up to people and be like, wow, you have really nice hair? How do you not get called by the cops?
I don't do that. I'm just saying. I would compliment someone on their hair.
Yeah, but okay, whatever. Anyway, there's this weird travel. It's Rab. They make a slight mystery about who the traveler is.
Well, the one thing I think is interesting is how you find out. Okay, so there was Master Pang.
Yeah, Master Ping.
Yeah. Master Pang was the person, like the head person. I forget her title. But the head
Grandmaster
Ping. That's it. Grandmaster Ping was the head of Angela, like the training and everything at Angela. But she died protecting Angela from the part of Yggdrasil that was going to fall and destroy it.
Yeah.
And so basically, you just missed her. And I was like, oh darn.
Oops. Oopsie daisy.
But instead, you meet what was his name?
It's a pun on Dalai Lama. It's some pun on Dalai Lama. I don't remember what it was
what was
specifically.
it? High Lama. That was it.
High Lama. There we go. And he's like a 12-year-old with glasses.
Yeah, it's clearly not Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
But he's this like kid who's very wise, and so he's like sort of greets you in her place, and I forget why you go up to like follow this traveler who went up to the mountain. I think that's what it was.
Oh, because I think the traveler told him to like follow him or whatever.
Yeah, or like he was up there for so long and they're worried about him.
Yeah, so what I really like about the section coming up is that you do a little bit more dungeon-y type stuff. You climb to the top, and then you see the guy in a little hut, like, meditating. And I didn't notice that it was Rab at first, because he looked so different. But there's, like, a couple of really funny things. Like, for example, he's got the scene with the Oogler's Digest. Oh, my God. And then Hendrik, like, in one of the funniest scenes in the game, you see because if you look at Rab during the campfire scenes, like, you notice that he's not quite as dignified as maybe he makes himself out to be. Like, for example, he'll, like, do, like, a pose thingy, and he'll stumble when he's trying to do it. And there's also he'll, like, be sitting on a chair and, like, be nodding or whatever, and then sometimes he'll bring out a porno mag and start reading it. And stuff like that, which is great. So once you find him there, somebody makes a comment about how bad his posture is for meditating, which is really funny to me. And then he also has the porno mag right next to him. And Hendrik is like, Oogler's Digest version issue 2, there's thought to be none left, or something like that.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Hendrik gets super like fanboy-y about Oogler's Digest, and the High Lama and 11 just look at him like, what? And
I mean, like, I've spoken before about how lol pervert isn't exactly my favorite brand of humor, But what I like about it is that it's a relatively minor thing, because that's like, I think, one of the only points in the game where Hendrik is really like that, if I remember correctly. Like, it's not brought up a lot. It's not overused.
No, it's
and
really
the performance just sells it as well.
Yes.
Is also the thing. So that's great. And so anyway, you eventually so the guy there's almost dead is another thing. Like, he's like barely holding on to life. So you have to like enter his soul or something like that, or you enter the land of the souls actually in order to like try to bring him out of this half dead state of being, pretty much.
He's sort of meditating, but he's let his body waste away.
Yeah, because like Rab is a plump dude, and so and he's like skin and bones, which is why I didn't even recognize that was him when he was sitting there, you know. And nobody says Rab specifically, so yeah. So you then you go inside, and seeing Rab again was a heartwarming kind of situation, because they're playing his music. Like, he's one of the only characters in the game with a theme song as well, and he's like doing the training and whatnot, which is also a really cool scene. And you also get to meet Grandmaster Pi too, who is
Grandmaster Ping's amazing.
Oh, did I call her Grandmaster Pi? Sorry. Grandmaster Ping is great. Yeah, her design is very nice.
And she's like, she keeps threatening Rob with the naughty stick.
Oh yeah, which is also great too. Yeah, and she's like trying to teach him one of the ultimate moves or whatever, so that he can, you know, help and whatnot. And one of those moves is Pearly Gates, which is traditionally a pretty dang good move in Dragon Quest, like one of the stronger screen clearing attacks. And giving it some gravitas, I think, worked in the favor. Like, he had just learned it when you showed up, is basically how they phrase it, if I remember correctly.
I think he was just like finishing, like, when you get there, he manages to pull it off for the first time.
Yeah, and then he's like, wow, I did it, Grandmaster Ping. And then she's just like, wow, you're not that hopeless after all, or something snarky like that, you know. So yeah, and then they have you work to, and then what's really cool is you have a Dragon Ball Z training montage, and you learn your own new skill, which is Quadra Slash, which was like a ability that the Luminary of old in the Age of Heroes had. And Quadra Slash is a badass move, for the record, and it really, really helps when you know, at that point in the game, when the hero used to have all these great screen clearing moves with Zap and whatnot, and you lose a lot of them when you lose the power of the Luminary. But with Quadra Slash, it's still risky, mind you, because it has such a high MP cost, but it allows you to do a lot of damage to many enemies at once, which you don't have the option to, because at this point you've got the hero with the neutered skill set and Hendrik, who is your tank character.
Yeah, and Hendrik can learn a couple group hitting attacks, but not that I can think of. He doesn't really learn any all enemy attacks.
I think maybe the highest form of crack might be able to do it.
Hendrik doesn't learn crack.
No, Hendrik. No, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about. No, if you have him on Great Swords, he can learn like the Helichopter.
Helichopter
like
hits one group. Helichopter doesn't hit all enemies, though.
Yeah, so
which especially for certain challenges later in the game, cough Wheel of Harma, cough attacks.
Oh, well, we can start talking about that like pretty soon, actually, because
Wheel of Harma,
you unlock that as soon as you finish this section. So
yeah, and Wheel of Harma, like, attacks that hit all enemies, regardless of group, are like necessary.
Required. Yeah, basically. So, I forget what happens, like, okay, so I remember now, like, I remember we completely forgot an important lore crap about the area that we're in. Yggdrasil's dead, so nobody can go back to the tree anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So, everybody who died is, like, stuck in this weird purgatory now, where their souls are just stuck there forever. And I think eventually they'll fade away for good if you don't fix crap, you know? Which is kind of morbid, you know, because like in a lot of games with an after, like in a lot of stories with an afterlife, you know, like there's like, you know, the idea that they'll come back or be resurrected, like that's something that they bring up a lot in the first half of the game, you know, like, oh, they went back to the tree, like you'll come back, your soul will go back to the Yggdrasil tree, like they bring that up when you're in Arborea, they bring that up with the Dundrasil thing, where it's just like in order for their souls to be at peace and like be reincarnated, essentially, you need to do that ceremony, you know? And so the idea that, you know, these people aren't just dead, but their souls could be gone forever is like really morbid, you know, like it's really something. And so it adds a weight to this beyond just people aren't just going to die, they're going to disappear forever, you know? Like they're not just sent to the Shadow Realm. The Shadow Realm will also disappear, and then they just don't exist anymore, which is like it's very nihilist existential. I don't know. There's some sort of philosophy.
It adds a depth to which Morrigan screwed up the world. It's not just that like he made life a living hell for everyone who survived, but even the people who died can't really find peace. Yeah,
so he's an asshole. Basically. So there's that, and something like tries to kill you while you're in the soul world.
I think it's Morrigan. I think he realizes he sees you and realizes, oh, you're alive.
Yeah, but you have to fight something, and I don't remember what it is.
You have to fight Rob.
Oh yeah, you have to fight Rob, but that's just to prove that you're. Oh wait, no, I remember now. You do the new pet power that you learn at that point.
Yep. You and Rob team up and do cool.
Yeah, you do Pearly Gates plus Quadra Slash equals dead enemies. Pet power and cutscene.
Solar Flare, that's what it's called.
Yeah, Solar Flare. Okay, so yeah. So I do really like that section, because Rob didn't really have anything to do for a lot of the first half of the game other than spout exposition, you know? So you really do get that extra sense of connection to him at this point as well, especially since he's kind of your mentor figure for a lot of the second half of the game as well. Because like we said, since you can do so many things out of order at this point in the game, the only character that they can rightfully assume that you have on your team is like Rob and Hendrik and Sylvando for a lot of it. Yeah. So if you do get other people, like you're still only getting those guys having dialogue for a lot of it.
Yep.
You know? So you do get a lot of development for Rob in that point. Or maybe not even development, but he feels much more present. Whereas like during the first half of the game, it's usually Eric and Veronica who are doing most of the talking. And in the second half of the game, it's more Rob and Hendrik. So I just think that's a cool change of pace, you know? So anyway, you recruit Rob after that, and then you can do the Wheel of Harma if you want.
I did not do it at that point. I think I was just too curious. Like, I just wanted the rest of my party back.
Yeah, so I think I tried it, you know, just for fun. I think you can beat, like, the first two, maybe. Good luck doing it within, like, the turn limit that they give you. But, like, to get the good stuff. But I think you, like, can technically beat a few of them. You get good stuff for doing it. It's a really cool kind of, like, twist on the post-game stuff. Because in Dragon Quest, traditionally, what they have you do for, like, post-game super bosses is they have you try to beat it within a certain number of turns. So it's like, okay, can you beat you defeated me in only 56 turns, you know, or something like that. So I really like because it's not just one fight, it's a lot of different fights spread throughout, and they're all themed in a really cool way. And they also play the Dragon Quest III battle theme, which is also really neat as well. So I liked it a lot, especially when you get more options in the post game too, is also a thing. So
yeah, I'm really curious to look up like the strats people have come up with, because I feel like I brute forced a lot of them. But
I did too. Same. Yeah. Okay.
But I feel at the time of this recording, I have not. I've beaten the last one, but it was not graceful.
Did you do it within the lowest amount of turns?
I did not. I need to figure out how to do that. Yeah, because
I think I didn't do that until I was all 99. So
I am all 99. It's just a matter of like. I mean, even being like, that's the thing. You can be level 99, and it's not going to be enough to just hit everything.
Yeah,
because these enemies have stats that aren't gonna, like, you need to know what you're doing a little bit more than that. Either trial and error, or like, look up what people would suggest.
Look it up on a guide.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm gonna do, because I'm busy. I'm playing roulette right now. I'm trying to get more casino accolades. Gotta get some trophies.
So, I'm trying to think of other... so, Sylvando's quest is next, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Sylvando's quest is great.
And I want to say, like, before we finish with Rob, I guess Rob really, like... This part of the game is where a lot of characters get their real growth. And Rob, I would say, doesn't have as much, but for him, I think it was more, like, learning this thing that he failed to do when he was growing up. He never had learned Pearly Gates. So really pushing himself to excel. And I think for him it's just like, as a character, his goal is to protect you because you're his grandson. And like, I feel like his arc was just like, his goal is just to keep you safe. And the fact that you survived and that he can like help you and learn this skill, that's really where he gets his like resolution.
Yeah, and Rob also does get some more growth in a later scene as well. It's minor, but you still learn more about him as the game goes on, which I think is also important.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Think so. We'll get to it.
We'll get to it, yeah. And I mean, it's not a lot of growth, but it's like, there's still more for him to... You're still not... It's not like his presence in the story is just minor now that you've finished his section, which I think is important. But anyway, Sylvando's section. So if you go to a couple of the different towns at this point in the game and you explore, you find out that there's been this horde of, like, terrible, like... These young men have gone crazy, like... They've done nothing but, like... chanting and dancing, and, like... Are they praying to some evil demon
They're
or something?
wearing these strange outfits.
Yeah, like, what sort of strange cult has formed? And then you find out that Sylvando got a bunch of the community theater people from around Adrea to join a club, and they're the Soldiers of Smile, and they're trying to make everybody happy in a world that's gone to hell, which is just like the best ever.
But also their way of doing it is so fantastic, because they're like this wonderful parade of like boys in silly uniforms, but they also actually protect people from monsters.
Yeah, that's also... Oh, you get to join the parade too, which is amazing.
And you get the best outfit.
You get the best... The Marty garb is, first off, a fantastic name, and second off, is the best piece of equipment in the game, bar none, because you get the ability to wave at people. And you never stop doing it, ever.
And you run silly.
You run super silly. It's amazing. But I forget, you run into him in Phenomenon, I know for sure. I don't... You
cross the bridge on the south part of the Champs Sauvages.
Oh, yeah, I remember now.
And that's where you run into him, and he's like, "Darling!"
And he's so happy to see you. He's so happy to see you, too, which is another important thing. So it's just, you see him, and then he's like, I need to help all these people. You want to come with? And so you join the parade, and Hendrik wants nothing to do with it.
Yeah, Hendrik seems pretty confused, if I remember correctly.
He didn't sign up for this, He just wanted to help the Luminary, save the world. He didn't sign up for people dancing. Like, that was not on his contract. He wants to see Sylvando's manager. So yeah, I think like eventually he gets like just like he's just so done with the whole thing that he just gives up, and he's just like, all right, let's follow the parade, which is great. So Sylvando at this point you get the sense that he's doing this to ignore his real responsibilities, which I think is like a cool way to do it. Like, he wants to help people, but he doesn't know how he's supposed to do that. And this was the best idea he could come up with on his own, was to make a parade, basically. So, which I think is like a really cool idea, is that he hasn't given up on trying to help people. It's just that he's kind of deluded himself into thinking that this is the best way and the most important way to do that. Because even as you're still, like, even when you show back up, he's just like, oh, you're here. Now you can help me do this, as opposed to, I can help you, like, try to take down the Dark Lord.
Yeah,
you know, does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. Like, Sylvando, I'm the Luminary, I'm here. We could do, like, Luminary stuff. It's like,
and he's like, no, darling, no, you have to be in my parade.
Wear this. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, he's always had great ideas from the start, so, you know, why not listen to Sylvando, you know? So, yeah, so I think he goes to, you go back to Phenomenon, and everybody's just really terrified when all the people show up, and they're in those strange outfits, and they're all dancing at them, and they're just all so confused, and like some people are like cowering in fear as all of the people in the peacock outfits are like dancing in front of them and waving, you know, which is just great. I love it. But yeah, it's such a cool, so I think at that point, Phenomenon is having troubles because, a monster named Avarith, told them, yo, the Demon Lord's here, but it's okay. If you give me your most valued possession, I'll keep it safe for you, dog. And, turns out he's a dirty, stinking liar. Who'd have thunk that?
Yep.
And there's also the drama about the one guy and the one kid and his dad. And the kid's really upset that the dad's being a douchebag now, I think, is another thing. Like, that's another minor story point I think that's going on.
I mean, there's a reason for that story point.
Yeah, that's... Well, I mean, I know it's... I forget how it affects the main plot. I know that it's, like, supposed to...
It sparks things for Sylvando.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, that's true.
So,
okay.
yeah, the whole, like... The actual events in
that
Phenomenon,
part.
I feel like, were pretty, like, you know... by the book. Monster did a bad. We go beat up Monster. We fix the bad. But what it triggers for Sylvando is that Sylvando sees this child reconciling with his father. And Sylvando is like, darling, I gotta tell you something. I gotta go see my poppy. And you're like...
Are you saying that Sylvando's father lives in Puerto Valor? What? I could always have guessed that, because it's pretty obvious.
Yup.
But I think it's supposed to be pretty obvious. You know, like...
Yeah, Sylvando is like... Oopsies, darling, here's the thing. I want to help you, but I can't leave my soldiers a smile all by themselves. And there's only one person I trust to, like, take care of them. And that's my poppy. He lives in Puerto Valor. Yeah.
We had a fight. Will you help me come out to my dad?
Pretty much.
So one of my favorite images that I saw from Dragon Quest Twitter on about this whole thing is when you're talking to Sylvando's dad, and he's like hiding behind you, and he's wearing the big peacock outfit. And then, but you're in that cutscene. They have the hero wearing the Marty garb, and the caption is just, "When you're helping your equally gay friend come out to his family." Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty great. So, yeah. So the whole section is very clearly a metaphor for like coming out to a not super supportive family, which is you know, not an area that I thought that Dragon Quest would go to, but, like, I didn't think that they would go there, but I welcome it for sure, because they handle it. We were talking about this to some extent earlier in part 1. They handle it super gracefully. Like, it's clear that it's a metaphor for that kind of thing, but they also don't have to scream, look, we're doing a metaphor for gay stuff, like, as well.
Yep.
Like, in that it's not...
And it's not, and I
egregious.
like that it's not about sex. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, for sure.
it's more, you know, I was talking to a friend. I have a friend who actually works in child psychology and works with a lot of LGBTQ kids.
Oh, cool.
And my friend who uses either she, her, or they, them pronouns, but prefers they, them. They like have talked about like coming out it does not necessarily have to be about like sex. It can be about like something you do. You know, the old adage of like people who are really into comic books like being, you know, like feeling the need to be secretive about it because like it's a nerdy hobby. You know, people like I sometimes feel like I'm like there's a very like that sort of embarrassment when I like tell people, you know, like, oh yeah, like I play video games for fun. You know, like these things. And it's different than coming out about, you know, something that people are judged on and discriminated for versus like a choice of like what I do for fun. But so I think the idea of coming out people see as this really foreign thing, but it's actually a very universal experience, and I appreciate how it was done with a character who like is flamboyant, and obviously, you know, you can see it very clearly as like him coming out, but it's also on a very like on a surface level, it's not him coming out about being gay. It's just the person he wants to be and what he feels is his calling in life.
That's, I think, is also a really great way to put it, because another thing that I really like too is that it's not necessarily that because the whole thing about Sylvando and his dad is that, and you learn bits and pieces about this as you play the first half of the game. But as you're playing, you find out that Sylvando's dad trained all the knights in Heliodor, basically, and he's like this super famous knight, pretty much. And his son, who had mysteriously gone missing, who is Sylvando, just so that we're clear, was like really, really talented and like due to like, you know, be just as good as him as Don, what was his name again? I've always just called him Sylvando's dad. Don R something.
Don Rodrigo.
Rodrigo, there we go, thank you. I knew it was something Spanish, but I couldn't remember what it was. But anyway, the Don Rodrigo was just like, and then he just left automatically. And so when you come back and talk to him, he's like, you come back and you show your face here after all that. And it's just like, you think that he's going to be, like he says that, and you think he's going to be angry about leaving, like, about Sylvando leaving and giving up on this, on what, like, you know, his father had wanted for him. And instead he's just like, well, you told me you were going to put a smile on everybody's face in the world. Have you done it yet?
Yeah.
Have you literally made everybody in the world smile? If not, what are you still doing there? Get back at it. And like, I felt that was kind of touching, you know, in that in his own way, he had accepted what his son wanted to do, but that doesn't mean that he lowered his expectations for him, if that makes sense.
Yep, exactly. He'd accepted it, but it's like, he's accepted that this is what was Sylvando's calling, but he's like, I still expect you to do, like, you know, he basically said, I'll be proud of you if you do well at whatever you do.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to if your goal in life is to make everyone happy, then I'll be proud of you if you do it. It's, you know, I won't be proud of you if you
I guess that's
fail.
being supportive, I suppose.
So he's a tough love sort of dad, clearly.
Yeah. So I feel like the scene's really well done, and again, a lot of it is the voice acting that pulls it off for sure. But anyway, then Sylvando can join your party before this point if you do his quest before Rob's. But if you do his quest after Rob's, then then he joins your party at this point. Like, if you do it before you do Rob's, then he joins your party like right after the Avarith stuff, pretty much. So yeah, so you have Sylvando on your team. You've got a team of 4 people, and now the game really opens up because you get access to the ship, and you can do a lot of different stuff at this point. There's a lot of side quests going around. I think, if I remember correctly, you're told to go to Zwardrust, I think, because of reasons? I don't remember why exactly they want you to go to Zwardrust. off the top of my head.
Oh, you know what I think it is? I think you're told. Someone at some point is like, man, there was this martial artist chick with long legs, and she said she was going to Octagonia, and the only way to get to Octagonia is to go through Zwardrust.
Yeah, I know there's that, but I think you can do the events at Dunderzil before you do Octagonia, because I know that I did. Did you, which one did you do first?
I did Dunderzil first because it was on the way, and I think what happens is as soon as you're in the area, people start talking about like, oh, go to there's this inn where everyone has the same dream, and I was like, fine, I'll pony. I like stayed in like 3 inns over the course.
Oh yeah, because you can camp out for free.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been on like 1,000 camping trips because I was foraging so much. It took me a long.
We make so many s'mores. Oh my gosh, so many s'mores.
It took me so long to figure out that you don't have to stay the night. You can just break camp.
Yeah, and it doesn't even move time, I think.
Yeah.
If you do
Well, it becomes night.
Yeah, but you can just stay. Yeah, like you don't even have to heal. Like I guess is the big thing. I mean, you should because you're there, but
might as well.
Yeah. Anyway, so you go to the. Let's just do the Dunderzil stuff first, I guess, because
you go there and you have a dream.
Yeah, you have a dream.
This guy is so sad.
Yeah, he's so sad. Alexa, play Despacito. He says something about Dunderzil, and so it's clear that you're supposed to go to Dunderzil, and you do that. And you actually get to explore a little bit more of it, which is nice because when you're there the first time, there's not really much to do in Dunderzil. So you go there and you get to explore a little bit more of the dungeons, and you see this knight guy there, leaning there, and he's super sad. Like, he's the saddest person, like, around. And do they recognize who that's supposed to be immediately, or is that it doesn't happen until you go into his brain?
I think Rob recognizes who it is.
Oh, okay. So Rob recognizes that that's actually your dad, Erwin, who I guess wasn't dead this whole time. Or it's kind of vague whether or not he's been dead or not dead or whatever. Yeah. But the point is that, like, something's not right here. Like, something's clearly keeping him from just moving on. So I think Rob does some sort of mysticism mumbo-jumbo in order to get you, like, inside his brain. And you explore his memories at that point. And this upcoming scene, I think, is one of the best in the game, honestly, is the point where you explore Erwin's brain. And
his memories of the night when Dunderzil fell.
Yes, for
that
sure.
Was really
because you start off and it's like this big party and everybody's like, oh, the new prince has been born and whatever, and they're talking about how there's also supposed to be this I think it's called the Colloquy of Kings, is what they specifically call it.
Yep.
And it's like this big meeting of all the kings of the nations that only happens once every couple of years. And so it's happening today, and, you know, there's talk about, because I believe Zwardrust fell only a couple of years before Dunderzil did. So that's still on everybody's mind, and everybody's shaking
Zwardrust, yeah. I'm not.
Zwardrust.
They don't. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and everybody's like really freaked out about the fact that monsters are back and whatnot, you know. So, you also get a chance to really meet, like, see faces for a lot of these people that had died. Like, for example, you get to actually meet the queen, for one. So you get to really meet, she actually has Jade with her at that point. And you get to see young Jade and, like, talk to her. And, you know, you get to get a sense of how she was before, you know, all this terrible stuff started happening. Which is also, I think, really cool. And then you get to the scene where your dad brings baby you into the meeting with all of the different kings. And then, so you saw part of this in the opening cutscene, but only like a couple of lines, basically, where they're like, you saw like 3 lines of it, and you're hearing the whole meeting at this point. And so the kings are like, okay, so This kid has the mark on his hand, so that means that he's the rebirth of the Luminary. We should kill him. And then your dad's like, wait, what? Well, yeah, because if the light is coming back, that means the darkness is going to come back too, right? So, if we kill your baby, the problem will be solved, right? Which, seems legit. No faults in logic with that plan. But the part about it that really hit me so well was that, was Erdwin, they talk a little bit about how he's not a traditional king because he didn't grow up as nobility. He was a knight. And, he and Eleanor fell in love and they were just making it work. So, the etiquette part isn't really his strong suit, basically, is what they said. And so he just, he loses all composure and, he's just not going to have any of it. He's that strong. He's like, no, this is my son. The darkness isn't going to just come because there's a symbol of hope here now. That's not how it works. Which I think is such a honest and refreshing change of pace for these kinds of things. Because there's so much stuff where it's just light and darkness are two sides of the same coin. Oh, the dark cannot exist without the light. And it's just no, there can just be good people, I think, is the point that he's trying to make. You don't necessarily have to be molded by terrible events in order to become a good person. You can just be one. And that, to me, I don't know, him being so firm about that really struck home for me. Did you feel the same way, or did you have a different take on that whole thing?
No, I would agree that it was a really powerful scene in that, like you said, you got, essentially we had in the past the King of Heliodor making the same argument he made to justify, what he did to the Luminary. But you had, Erwin essentially being no, you're wrong. Yeah.
And then you find out that they were just testing him, so yeah,
that was
okay.
A little weird, honestly. I felt like that was...
I mean, I think it worked, because, again, I don't think that they knew if they could trust him, because he's not a traditional king, he wasn't grown up with nobility, so I think it makes sense in character, even if it is a little bit of a cop-out, Mm-hmm. But yeah, I really did like that scene, and then monsters start attacking, which is bad. And honestly, I think the scene where all the monsters start attacking is one of the best in the game. Because, again, you're a helpless onlooker. You can fight some monsters, and people are like, what? Where did they go? But that doesn't stop anything, that everybody's still gonna die. You ultimately can't change any of what's going on here. And also, the scene where they kill Erwin and, is also really cool because you go down and you follow Erdwin through the dungeons, and he's like, Eleanor, Jade, take the baby and run away. And so they get out of the castle, and you see the king there. No, wait, no, you don't see King of Carnelian. You run into Mortigan, I think is who it is. Mortigan's just straight up there, and he murders your dad, and then jumps into Carnelian's body, and then he's talking to Hendrik, and he's already taken on the ruse, and he's like, oh, King Erwin tried to attack me, and the Luminary's actually the Darkspawn the whole time. And it's just it's at that point where, you get this point of reference for when Mortigan started his long game,
Yep.
Which is cool. And
Yes.
then you find out that Daddy Erwin isn't actually dead. He's just being the Gloomnivore's snack.
The Gloomnivore
which is
a great name, for the record.
I mean, I like it, but at the same time, I think a slightly more serious name might have been a little bit better after a series of events that emotional. It's the same kind of thing I had with the Dora in Grey kind of pun, is that, okay, I love Dragon Quest and its pun names, don't get me wrong, but there's a time and a place, I think, as well, you know? Like, it's a minor thing, obviously, because it's still a great sequence nonetheless, but still, you know. In any case, you beat him up, and then your daddy is at peace. And you get your luminary powers back, I think, as well. Which, you know, is another great sequence. So, yeah. So that's also why I think if you're playing the game, you should go for that first, because you want those powers back ASAP, because they're so good.
Yes.
Did you reallocate your skill points when you got your luminary stuff back, so that, or did you leave it all on the sword stuff that you would put it on instead? Because I was like, nope, I don't need these dumb sword skills. I can shoot lightning bolts out of my hands now. All right.
What did I do? I don't remember.
I feel like you probably didn't reallocate.
I probably didn't, because I might have not spent all the skill points. Like, I might have not. I forget what I did. I forget if I was sitting on some skill points or if, like, the game gave me some skill points. I'm not sure.
I don't think the game would have given you any skill points, because you get to keep all the ones you lost when you lose the luminary powers in the first place, you know? So yeah, so that sequence I do think is great. Octagonia is probably the one that you're most likely to do after that.
It's on the way.
Yeah, it's basically like right there. So, Octagonia is kind of a weird one. Like, I mean, you're likely to have had, like, I feel like they expect you to do Dundrazil first, so it's intended to be more of a comic relief one in comparison. But there's also some weird stuff about it, too. Like, so this is Jade's section, if you're not familiar with the game at this point. And, so you walk into Octagonia, and turns out they're all about, all these monsters are walking around like they own the place. And the place is about the casino now, which is, you know, a little weird, because this was the martial arts area. But whatever.
Ted doesn't care, another casino.
Oh, well, yeah, well, they have the roulette there,
Yes.
which is, like, the best part of the, like, I mean, I've bitched about this plenty among different things, but as much as I love Dragon Quest, most of the games have terrible casinos because the way that they do the card games, I can't stand the way they do the double or nothing gimmick. Like, because normally in almost every other RPG, the way the double or nothing usually works is that you flip up a card, let's say it's a 4. All right, they flip up the card, and then they say, is the next card you're going to flip up higher or lower? And if you get it right, then you get to double the money you got on the previous hand. Okay, and in Dragon Quest, what they do instead is they flip up a number, and it could be anything. So they could put up a king, and then they say, okay, which one of these 4 cards is higher? And there's just no, like, there's no sense of, you can't, because they pull up a new card every time, you can't, like, there's no way to know when a good time to stop is, you know? It's all, like, I mean, I know that it's the casino, and so it's effectively luck, but part of making the casino good, not just in video games, in real life, too, if you want to make a good casino, you want to make it so that you think that the customer can manipulate their chances, you know? Whereas Dragon Quest just doesn't do that, and it's frustrating. So, anyway, that's way off topic, but they bring back the roulette, which is, like, the easiest thing to cheese in the world. So I get my tokens that way, suckers. Yo, yo, yo. But anyway, you walk in, they're like, oh, yeah, the guy who runs this place, he's in the VIP room. You need to, like, get enough tokens in order to buy Love Potion to bribe your way in there, I think is what you need to do. So, I don't think we ever really talked about the casino. Did you like the games that they had in this one, or not?
I'm playing Slime Quest right now. I don't understand this game at all.
You press the start button, and it will automatically reel for you, like 100 times. And then you just do whatever the hell else you want.
Wait,
for that
are
thing.
you... What? Hold on.
Press the... Oh, it's the options button. Sorry. Press the option button.
you serious?
And then the game will start rolling the reels for you now. Like, you don't have to press anything.
Okay.
So now you can, like, watch TV or listen to a podcast or read a book or whatever, and the game will effectively earn tokens for you.
Wait, I think it just kicked me out. Because it's saying boss has beaten 0, tokens taken 13. So am I done? Oh no, here's Ghoulies again. I lost to the boss.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, this game is confusing.
Yeah, I mean, it's cute, don't get me wrong.
But it's just so elaborate, and I can't control the slots. I know the point is it's supposed to be like slots you can control, but...
Yeah, but like the point of it is that you will earn tokens. It's just really slow.
Yeah,
in Slime
it's
Quest.
super slow. Also, like, how do I get these casino accolades, Ted?
You get a bunch of them easy by doing poker. Honestly, like,
really?
Some of them are just earning a bunch of points. Some of them are getting specific hands in the poker. You know.
Tried poker. I just kept getting pairs.
I mean, yeah, that's what's most likely.
That's how poker works, Qatherine.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also, like, for getting a certain amount of double or nothings in a row and stuff like that. Like, again, it's all luck.
Double or nothing, it makes me nervous. I'm the sort to cash out early.
Yeah, and that's why you don't have what it takes for that hardcore casino life.
Oh.
All right.
But I got a slots on the slot machine, and on roulette. And
how many casino accolades do you need for that trophy?
10.
Again,
I have
10.
I have 8.
Yeah, if you do other games is the big thing. If you already think you've gotten all of them for the roulette. But anyway, I guess back to plot.
Yeah, but the casino. What's fun about? I really liked how the casino slots are like rigged when you go there.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I also like the rewards as well.
Oh gosh, that was so funny.
Because when you go to normally when you go to Dragon Quest, you can see what you're going to win when you cash in your tokens. But at the Monster Casino, you go in, you can see that you get the love potion for like 300. So it's like 3,000 gold, which is nothing at this point. So if you don't even want to bother with the casino stuff, you can just buy those tokens at the other casino. Mm-hmm. But you go there, and then if you decide to buy the other stuff, I think like the one after that's like a medicinal herb, and then like a cypress stick.
Yep.
And then I think like boxer shorts.
Horse manure is one of them.
No, horse manure is the last one for like 1,000,000 tokens or something ridiculous like that, which is great for the record. But yeah, so you get the love potion, you break your way in, and then oh god, what was the name of the guy? I don't remember what his name was. The boss.
He had a stupid name.
Yeah, he did have a stupid name, but I don't remember. He was a big fat guy, basically.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, no, you're not going to fight me. You're going to fight my minion. And then Jade comes out in a bunny outfit, which she never wore on the overworld for me, for the record, unless if I made her. All right. So she's also looking kind of like dark-skinned and demonic, which, you know, isn't cool. So, am I the only one who felt that this was kind of like, this part of the game was kind of like sketch? Like,
I felt like this part of the game was kind of weird. Like this thing with Jade.
Like, it makes sense for her character in some ways. Like, for example, she's allowed to, like, let loose, which is something she didn't feel like she had the ability to do when she was a princess, and she didn't have the luxury to do after the fall of Dundrasil. His name
was Booga.
Booga, there we go.
I just found him in the bestiary.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
So yeah, so that makes sense, and because she has this whole dialogue about like, oh, I can do whatever I want now, which makes sense. But it's also just kind of, I have no way better to put it but rapey, I guess, because it's effectively implied that Booga mind wiped Jade and made her like a sex doll, pretty much.
Yeah, and
which
like
is super sketch.
It's also
basically
basically said that like all the succubats that are in the casino are also his like minions.
and all of the monsters are people who have played too much casino slots and whatnot, and they literally get turned into monsters at that point. So, yeah, I get what they were going for, and it's certainly dark, for sure. Like, it's one of the darkest plot points in the game. It's just, like, I don't know if the game doesn't go deep enough into it in order for it to feel worth. This is, like, the only story point in the game that I just straight up am kind of about, you know?
Yeah, no, I feel you. It was kind of like, it was the part in the game where we said, like, 90% of the game, it feels like they're not treating Jade like a sex object. This is the one part of the game where it felt a little like, not sure.
Well, no, that's kind of the point, you know, I think, is the thing, is that they were trying to, I think, make a bigger point about, like, how much control she had over her own sexuality, but they bit off more than they could chew.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yep.
Because, you know, they were trying to make a point about, like, you know, Jade, like, she's normally a very reserved person, and, you know, like, how much of that is her choice and how much of that is her being forced to do it. And, you know, that could go into an interesting place, but it just doesn't go that far and instead just feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah. And then I mean, the boss fight's decent at the very least. And I do like the scene where Jade, just like after she realizes what happens, just beats the ever-living shit out of Booga. Like, that's really funny.
My favorite part was when Hendrik was like, princess, like, you know, Hendrik is just horrified that the princess is, like, dressed like this. And she's like, fuck off. She just basically, like, kicks him in the face and is like, you can't handle a woman.
Yeah, she's like, oh, honey wenny.
Yes.
Like, that's a great line, though. Like, there was sparks of something really cool there. They just didn't go all the way through with it, I think, is the big thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's, like, the only point of the game where I was kind of, like, where the story was even a little bit kind of to me. Like, the rest of it's fantastic, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I'm trying to think of... Was there anything else about... Oh! They take away all the tokens you won at the Monster Casino, which I also thought was funny.
Yeah.
Although really annoying, because I won, like, several million
right.
tokens at the Monster Casino, because I didn't know how to exit Slime Quest. I, like, straight up did not know how you're supposed to leave that minigame, because it kept on saying that you'll leave with such and such tokens, and I'm like, what? And it's because when you're in the Slime Time minigame, you have the potential to win more. But, the bonus that they're talking about, it's not like you're only winning a portion of that. It's like you're leaving with all the tokens you won plus that many, not only that many, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know how long.
I get what you mean, yeah.
Which is, it's just, I was there for like a good 3 hours just playing Slime Quest. Because I wanted to understand it and I just never could.
No,
so
me neither.
it's such a bizarre.
It's okay, it's autoplaying now, and the autoplay seems to be doing better than I was.
I know, right? So if you want easy, just leave it on while you're like taking a nap or something, and you're good.
Yeah, wow,
So-
Ulysses is better off without me. he's killing it. Wow, this is crazy. Anyways, but yeah, so that was sort of the low point. Like, you and I were talking before I even started playing the game, and I was like, "Who is best girl?" And I think I asked you something like, you know, what do you think of Jade? And you were like, she kind of has is the least interesting. Not that she's bad, just the least interesting. And I see what you mean. Like, her sort of character chapter was not that interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, she doesn't have a lot to do, I think, is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, none of her plot points aggravate me the way that, say, Jessica from Dragon Quest VIII got me angry, you know,
Yeah.
because she was a character that was entirely superfluous, and when they did try to make her relevant, it was creepy, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Jade is connected to what's going on in a lot of different ways, and there are still some scenes coming up that are legitimately touching with her. It's just that there was more that could have been done, but there wasn't, so it's just she's a good character, but not a great character, you know?
Yeah.
In terms of personality, in terms of combat, she's amazing, but, because Dragon Quest martial artists are bae, but, yeah. Best girl is not Jade. I actually don't know who best girl is, honestly. I go back and forth.
Gosh.
Malodorine, yeah. Oh my god, we need to talk about her side quest while we're thinking about it, because there's nothing else.
We could go to it. You can go to it at that point.
You can go to it, like, before you technically... You can start it, I think, before you even get Rob. So she stopped smelling good ever since the fall happened. So you need to go to the Cryptic Crypt in order to get some perfume from her walking corpse dad. So you go back to the dungeon, and there's all these walking corpses walking around, and you keep on talking to them, and they're like, no, I'm not her dad. And then there's one of them who's just like, what? I'm not her dad. I'm obviously a girl.
She gets so upset. Understandably, but...
Yeah. And then when you talk to her dad and get the perfume, you're like, you don't want to know what's in there.
Yes.
And it's great. Malodorine is best girl. You're right. So anyway, at that point, I think technically the next character you find is Eric.
Yep. Because once you go outside, I think it's when you.
Oh yeah, because you need to get Jade because she's got the harp, and that's what you need in order to leave the Outer Sea because Alizarin's causing crap, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. So once you leave and get to the Outer Sea, you go, there's a cutscene, and you find that someone's sneaking around in your ship, and it's Eric, and he snuck on board to steal food. But he doesn't know who he is or who any of you are. I love the scene where, they're, everybody's trying to figure out, what's wrong with him, and, Sylvando, he's acting so out of character, and Sylvando's just like, oh, if Veronica could see this, she'd die, or something like that, which is a great line for multiple reasons, which we'll get back to. Anyway, when we talk about Veronica's section. But anyway, so Eric joins your team, but he's a little confused at the moment.
Yep.
So you go to reallocate his skills, and he has none. He literally just has the center dot in his skill grid, and you can't, give him any skills at all.
Yeah, that was so weird, because, yeah, he's so distressed every time you go into party chat. He's in, the distressed pose. He's like, oh.
And, every time you go camping, too, he won't sit down. He's always standing on the outskirts.
Yeah, that broke my he just stands on the out. Normally what I love with the camping is, everyone has a couple poses that they'll, idle in, and they'll, do silly stuff. But instead, when Eric can't remember, he's just standing on the outskirts. He's just like, Eric, honey. Sit down.
And he can potentially be like that for a while, because obviously when you reach the Outer Sea again, you get access to a whole bunch of quests, side quests and towns that don't really have a lot to do with the main plot, so you're probably going to be exploring for a good bit, and he's just going to be sitting there not doing much of anything, pretty much, which is, distressing. So I think you can go to Sniffelheim basically right away if you want to.
Because I wanted to fix it.
And, obviously, since he was acting shifty around Sniffelheim, that's where it's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think you needed Jade, because otherwise you couldn't go underneath the gold stuff outside of Sniffelheim. Because there's just, these weird gold icebergs outside.
Yes,
which is weird.
I think the gold iceberg only melts after it melts. Or, yeah.
Dissipates.
Or is it you need the harp to get inside?
I think you need the harp to even just get to the outer sea, I think. At some point when you're sailing around, you fight a lizard too, and you beat him up and you take his marble. Which is satisfying because he, like, hounds you for a good part of the first half of the second half. The third quarter.
Yeah.
Let's call it that. He hounds you a lot. Like, he's easily one of the most threatening of the Spectrals.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's pretty cool. Like, that happens at some random point. I think it definitely happens before you fix Eric, though, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to Sniffelheim, and we were talking about this last time, but, like, the Queen and Crystalinda don't really have a lot to do in this section, but I like that there's a little character point where, you know, people have been turned into gold by evil, like, monsters and stuff like that. Like, there's this gold sickness that's been going around all over the place. And people think that the witch is doing it, so Crystalinda voluntarily goes into the dungeon so that people will be put at ease, their minds at ease just a little bit, which is, I think, just such a cool plot point. Like, a cool minor thing, you know?
Such a good girlfriend.
Yeah. I'm so jealous that the Queen gets a big-titted goth witch girlfriend and I don't. Anyway,
Would you be willing to be sealed in a book for that?
Like, I mean, she was only sealing a book for, like, 5 minutes. So sure. I mean, yeah, probably. Like, she's pretty damn hot. All right. Like, well, I mean, she's an ice witch, but you know what I mean. Whatever. Anyway, so you find out more about the Vikings at this point. Like, I think Eric starts to have migraines and whatnot, and so you bring him to a doctor, and he's like, "Yo, I recognize this guy." And so
the priest recognizes him.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The priest is like, Eric, and Eric's like, huh?
And so you go to the Vikings hideout, and there's monsters there.
Well, what happens? Well, first the priest explains to you what Eric's past is, because Eric never, Eric refused to go into Sniffelheim before, so astute ace attorney that I am, I figured he's got some sort of history in Sniffelheim. And the priest tells you that Eric and his sister were essentially forced labor for the Vikings when they were kids.
Who I should mention at this point were just like, lol, they're silly Vikings. The town doesn't mind them that much. And it's just like, nah, they had slaves, child slaves. And it's just like, oh. And they become much less silly and much more assholes.
Yeah, and that is one thing that I feel like the game never really addressed. Like, the Vikings never really, I don't know, you kind of feel like something should have happened to them.
Well, I mean, something did happen to them. They got turned into monsters. Remember?
Yeah, but like then they don't even remember. Like, I guess the Vikings were the thing where, like, is anything gonna change with them?
I think they kind of imply that they've changed a little bit since, because there's the Bikini Warrior who says, like, oh, they hired me, they're pretty okay now, at a point. I think also all their treasure goes missing, too, or something to that effect. I don't remember the specifics.
I like when you walk around their hideout, and you can walk on the pile of coins, and it makes a nice sound effect. It's 10 out of 10.
That's pretty... Why can't I pick it up and have more coins on my team?
I keep wondering that myself.
I
need the money.
For what? You're not buying equipment. You're forging it all.
To buy more gemstones from that cute slime at the school. The one that
Académie de Notre Maître de Médaille.
L'Académie de Notre Maître de Médaille. But yes.
Okay, so anyway, Eric is like slowly starts remembering all of this stuff, and you get a flashback, and you see his sister, who's pretty cute.
Wait, first he gets kidnapped. Like, he got kidnapped too, which was like, what?
Yeah.
Eric
he gets kidnapped.
Gets kidnapped twice in the game.
Oh man, you see, Eric is worse than Princess Peach, because Princess Peach usually only gets kidnapped once per game. So, Eric is worse than Princess Peach, confirmed.
Or better. Depends on your perspective.
I guess so.
But yeah, so you get to, when you get to the hideout, like Eric's fine. Eric's just PTSD in a corner, but he's fine. No, he's just like he still doesn't seem to know what's going on. But you get the feeling he's sort of in this weird state where he's like kind of remembering things.
Oh,
and,
you touch the
then,
Yggdrasil root in his old house, and then he remembers.
Yeah.
Okay,
and that's
so
when he remembers everything, and you find out everything.
Yeah,
because the priest told you we don't know where his sister went. She just stopped. Like we saw Eric. Like at one point, Eric came to the city, but his sister never did again. So there's sort of this mystery of like, okay, well, where did his sister go? And you find out.
So their backstory is really super sad. Like, so they were like, you know, child slaves, which sucks, but they had each other, you know, and so
and apparently had DQ Monsters adventures at some point.
Oh man, that's gonna be. I really hope we get that game. Anyway, that's a tangent. But anyway, so Eric's sister had like always dreamed of like getting enough money to get out of there, pretty much, and like start their own new life. And so at one point when they were a little bit older, Eric went on a raid with the Vikings and got this pendant, and it's just like it's rumored that like if you have it, everything that you get will be turned to gold. I got it for you because you're so greedy, haha. And he gives it to her, you know, in a joking way. Yep. And so she puts it on, and turns out it actually works. Oops. So like she's literally like a King Midas at this point, and like she's touching all the different stuff and turning it to gold, which, you know, she's at first like really entranced by, but then like the part that I thought was really cool was like, you know, Eric starts to get a little bit worried about her, and when the point when both of them kind of realize that she'd gone too far is the point when she touches the bird.
Yeah, when she shows Eric that she's already done it, but she shows Eric that this bird that they'd seen earlier in the flashback, she's turned a living bird into gold, and he's like, "What the heck, Mia? You can't turn living things into gold statues. What are you doing?" And she's kind of like, "Oh yeah, I got carried away."
And then they try to take, the thing is that they try to take it off, and they can't because none of them know Sheen. Oops. So
you told me there was no cursed equipment in the game.
There's no cursed equipment that you can equip, but Mia, he is a different story.
The last piece of cursed equipment in the world, and
oops,
a 13-year-old girl found it. But yeah, and then I presumably like in response to feeling that someone was trying to remove the necklace responds by turning Mia into gold. And
then Eric is kind of freaked out about this, so he leaves basically.
He leaves to try to figure out how to if there's anything he can do to restore her, because he tells the hero that he found out over the course of his travels that the necklace he unknowingly gave her was a cursed like medallion of a pirate king.
Oh yeah.
One Piece confirmed. No, but he's
because he knew that it had like legends about it when he gave it to her, but not like the deets.
He didn't. Yeah, he didn't know it was cursed, and he found out more like over the course of his career as a criminal.
Yeah. But it took him like 5 years or something ridiculous. So, like, she's just gone when you go back there too.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's what he's confused about that too, and that's what's like motivates him to press on, like go deeper past the hideout and try to find her, because he's like she couldn't have gone anywhere. Did she like?
Well, I think the other people who had turned into gold had also been taken away by the monsters. So logic dictates that she might have been taken too. So you go into the I forget what the name of the dungeon is, but you go to the very tacky gold dungeon.
The Gildenhall, I think.
The Gildenhall, that's it. And you get introduced to one of the best monsters ever, which is the slot machine mimic, which is
the penny
so
pincher.
Good. I was expecting it to pop up when you were in Octagonia.
Me too.
Because
although you do find one as a NPC, and there's a monster who's like super drunk, trying to play that, like trying to put coins in it. And if you talk to the penny pincher's like, this guy keeps trying to shove coins in my face. Like, I want to tell him off, but I'm afraid if I start talking, he's gonna freak the heck out. Because he's gonna be like, there's a talking slot machine. So
did you also try to start each individual slot machine to see which one would attack you?
Oh yeah, totally. Someone gave you tokens.
Yeah, so. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So, anyway, you go through, and Gil Digga is the big bad Spectral Sentinel that you had heard about, who's running the place. And you find out when you get through the after the whole Yggdrasil route thing, Eric goes back to normal and you get his skills back.
He's fine.
Yeah. But it turns out Mia was the Spectral Sentinel the whole time. Dun dun dun.
What a twist.
I really like what they did with it, because Mia had been trapped in gold for 5 years or whatever, however long it was, a long ass time. She'd given up hope that Eric would have come back to save her,
Yeah.
Like, because he didn't ever really go back, to Snivelheim, because I'm sure he didn't want to be there, and he didn't think Answers would be there anyway. So it's not like he came back and said, "Yo, Mia, I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
Don't worry."
And also, I think it would have been too traumatizing for him to see her like that again.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, you're not gonna stay, because she's like not just like turned to gold, standing still. She's like reaching out for him.
Yep.
And stuff. Like, you don't want to just see that, like when you go to bed every night. So, yeah. So she was pissed off, and Mortigan was like, "Yo, if you join my team, I'll not only turn you back to normal, but I'll give you a Megazord. What do you say?" And Mia's like, "Hell yeah." So, you fight her, and the scene. What did you think about the scene after that?
I was confused on what the consequences were, because it basically gives you a choice where it looks like Eric is about to kill Mia, is what I got from it. But then you have an option to like stop him, but I'm not sure if it actually mattered. Like, it was one of those decision points where I'm like, is this like the Lana Lulu thing where I'm actually making a choice that will matter, or is this a choice?
What did you choose? I think I chose to stop him.
I did
basically.
too, I think I hemmed and hawed, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop him, because like maybe we can save her with the power of friendship.
Yeah.
Let's throw a friend heart at her.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know what I do like what happens after that, because like instead he's like, okay, maybe if we take the pendant off of her, we can like save her. And so instead, like, he almost turns to gold as well, and then like she's able to stop it, like when she realizes that she made a bad move, and it's touching and stuff, and then she passes out, which is bad. So she's like in a coma for the rest of the game, which I suppose is better than being a statue, I guess. But I think it's just a really touching scene as well, because at that point also, Eric forgives himself enough after that point to let himself reach his full potential. And you get all of those skills that were grayed out on his tree.
Yep.
You know? Which are really cool. Which is a really cool way. Again, I love how this game integrates the gameplay and they do it so much, which I think is really, really neat. So yeah, the day is saved, I guess. Like, I did think that Mia's voice acting was probably among the weaker performances, personally. Like, do you agree with that one?
Yeah, I would say she was not she was not one I thought was.
I mean, she was still good, but not as good as like many of the others. Like, there's the one line where she's like, "I don't need gold," which is a little.
Yeah, so
hammy.
I think it's also partly her dialogue was a little like overblown.
Yeah, like I felt like she was really good when she was bantering with the characters, and when she was trying to be a little bit more serious, it was not as good. Like, does that make sense?
I think I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yay, we I think at that point, like, there are other side quests you can do at this point, but I don't think any of them are major, really. Like, because the next part that's coming up is, like, one of the most important and best parts of the game. So, before we forget anything else, is there any other minor story beats that you wanted to touch on?
I don't think so. I think we should just get to
Well, how long have we been? Yeah, we've been here for 2 hours. Okay, let's get going. Anyway, so after so one of the coolest things, like we were talking about how the overworld's changed between like the first act and the second act. When you're in Sniffelheim during the first act and you go to the bottom of the of one of the areas, you go to like a frozen lake and there's like a derpy dragon hidden down there, and you're like, that thing looks not
That looks
good.
like a future boss, I think was pretty much my thoughts.
Yeah, but nobody ever really brings it up, is the big thing. And so when you go back down there later and you see that part where the dragon is just a hole now, I was like, oh shit, was basically my mindset.
Yep.
So, yeah, and so I had explored a good amount of Sniffelheim before, like, continuing with the Eric stuff, because of course I did, because I'm me. So you I think your overall plan at this point was to make your way to Arborea, because someone there might know how to fix Yggdrasil, is basically your
people in
mindset.
Arborea seem smart. One of them will know what to do.
Well, that was our plan the first time, wasn't it? Anyway, so yeah. So you head towards Arborea, and the dragon's there, and he wants to eat you, because as you do when you're a dragon.
You know, Erdwin sealed him up, and you're the descendant, you're the like reincarnation descendant.
Yeah, but I'm not him. All right, like, I didn't have anything to do with that. You know, you need to take your misplaced rage and find a positive outlet for your emotions.
But he's
or you can just try to eat me.
Or
whatever.
he'll just try to eat you, I think.
That's fair. So, but guess who shows up? It's actually Serena at this point, who I was not expecting to see first.
Yeah.
At this point, with like, because again, we had talked about this a good bit, but Serena always took a backseat to Veronica, and it's not just in terms of like, you know, her not being as interesting as a character, but she mentions several times about how she's happy to let Veronica take the front and center, you know. She says stuff like that a couple of times. They mention it when you're talking to her parents and other people in Arborea or whatever, you know. So she comes and she saves you from the dragon with her magical harp stuff. And she seems very determined and focused, which is not like her, because she's normally kind of airheaded.
Yeah.
Like, which is part of what makes her entertaining in the first half, too, because, like, she always has these really random and out-of-context things to say, you know, if that makes sense, which is what made a lot of her party chat so endearing. So, she joins your team, and all the characters remark about how different she feels. And a lot of it is due to the fact that without Veronica there, she had to, like, step up a little bit and try a little bit more. Which...
Yeah, she was like, you know, the game has established that it's been a few months since Yggdrasil fell. So Serena's been on her own for the longest she's ever had to be on her own in her entire life.
Yeah.
Like months. It's like,
Yeah.
That's a long time for someone who grew up, you know, tied
with
like,
a twin.
yeah, with her twin.
Yeah.
So
but I do like where it's just like, oh, where's Veronica? And she's like, I thought she was with you. So you go to Arborea and things are super depressing there. Like everything's burned, obviously, but also like they kill a baby.
Yeah.
Like, well, not like the people in the town kill the baby. I mean, like the story kills a baby. You know, like.
Yeah, I remember I was shocked when I caught that before the game the game makes it very obvious.
Made it obvious.
But it's also pretty easy to easy enough to pick up on even before the game makes it obvious. I was like, Ted, did those people had a baby before? where's the baby? And you were like, yep, baby's dead.
Yeah, because when you first go to Arborea on the first half of the game, like, they make a big deal about, like there's this baptism ceremony kind of going on. And then the family that had the baby are really depressed, and the mom's really despondent, and they're not holding a baby anymore. And then eventually one of them just straight up says that they lost the baby in the fall of Yggdrasil, but, so, that's depressing. But, Serena's Wonderprint Twin Powers activates, and she's sure that Veronica's somewhere around there. So you go to this section...
Grove of Repose, which I forgot.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize it. Like, at first, it was just like, oh, that's a nice, quiet name. And then it became...
Yeah.
Not so nice.
Yeah, so it's this part... There's this part of the world map on Yggdrasil. I mean, not Yggdrasil, sorry. In Arborea, where there's, like, this open area where there's nothing in there, and there's nothing to do and not really any characters in there.
There was a quest before the fall.
Oh, there was?
A side
Okay.
quest, yeah, with a little girl. I got the item she wanted, but I never got to go back. I never took a detour to go back and give it to her before the fall.
Oh.
I was like, oh darn, I have your stuff.
Yes. Yeah, so it's very clear that something important is going to happen there,
Yep.
basically. And so you go back, and you do find Veronica, but
She's sleeping.
she's dead.
And then, yeah, she looks like she's sleeping, and then you find out she's dead.
Like, actually for real dead.
But it's not, and it's
Like-
not her body there. That's, I think, what...
No, it is her body.
No, she vanished. She vanished.
No, she vanishes after you see her. Like, she
I don't think it was
turns
her.
into the spark.
Oh, that's interesting, because I
Yeah.
would have said that wasn't her body. I thought that was a projection from her staff.
No, because when everybody dies in the game, they, like, turn into the little dusty type stuff.
Yeah.
And when, like, normal people die, they turn into the goldy type stuff. And when monsters die, they turn into, like, the grayish type floaty stuff. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you're right,
Because
yeah.
Because you see people die multiple times throughout the course of the game. And you see Veronica there and her staff, and I think they shake her a couple of times. And then when they realize she's dead, eventually she turns into the gold stuff and floats away. And I was taken aback at first, because I'm like the 7 stages of grief aren't a real thing. Just in case you thought they were, they weren't. But I definitely hit stage 1 denial, where I was like, no, she's not dead. No. It's an RPG. You're going to bring her back to life. She's not dead.
Yep.
And it becomes increasingly more clear as the scene goes on that, no, she's dead.
Yep.
She's straight up dead. And I think it's one of the best handled party member death scenes I've seen in an RPG. Up to this point.
How would you say it compares in your mind to FF7? For me, and the thing is, it's hard to compare. I'm gonna answer it for myself.
It's also one of the most loaded ones too, is the thing, because it's the RPG party member character
And
death.
the thing is, I was spoiled to Hendrik joining the party. I was not spoiled to Veronica dying. I knew for a long time before I played Final Fantasy VII that Aerith was gonna die. Your mindset...
You mean Eris was going to die?
Yeah, sure. Your mindset is different when it is unexpected. And that was, I think, a big part of what hit me about Veronica was, this just came out of nowhere. I did not see that coming. I thought we were going to find Veronica and Serena, and they were going to join the party, and we were going to be a happy group of 8. There's room for 8 characters on the menu screen, and that wasn't what happened. She's gone. And I was texting you. I remember I was like, no, this isn't, we're going to bring her back, right? And you're like, she's dead. You're not bringing her back.
No, it's... So, I do... I think part of what makes it... So, you were talking about Eris in Final Fantasy VII. Eris herself was not a character I was particularly attached to when I played that... I like Final Fantasy VII a lot. It's one of my favorites of the Final Fantasy series. which I know I talk shit about a lot in these podcasts and when we do like talk about Dragon Quest, because I do prefer Dragon Quest, but Final Fantasy VII is an amazing game. But Eris, I never really had that much of a connection to. Like, she was there, but she didn't really endear herself to me. But that's part of... So, what made that scene when she died so touching to me wasn't her dying. It was the reactions the party members had to her dying. Because you see, depending on who you bring in your party with you in Final Fantasy VII, the characters react in different ways. Like, for example, Barrett will, like, try to comfort you by tapping you on the shoulder. I think Yuffie breaks down in tears and starts hugging you. I think, like, Kate Sith tries to, like, cheer you up and then realizes this is not... He's like, this is not the time for that. I'm going to leave now, you know? And Veronica, Veronica, I think part of what makes it so effective is Veronica is not the character you would expect them to kill.
No.
Because she's not the love interest. Like, there's not really a love interest in this game, but, like, if there were, they'd make it Jade, because of course they would.
Even though it is sort of implied Veronica might have feelings for you, it's not something that... It's unclear, and it also, I mean, come on, they're not going to do anything with Veronica when she looks like she's 6 years old. Like, that's disgusting.
Yeah, that's, like, yeah, so...
like,
we'll leave that...
Yeah, I mean, and not to, like, I know they're, like... Not to say that adults can't, adults who are small or, like, have abnormal appearance should not be able to consent to things, but that's a line that this video game is not going to cross. No, not to mention, we're not gonna have a barely legal situation in Dragon Quest.
No, not to mention, the game brings up, Veronica is very much one of the most endearing characters in the game. Her dialogue is hilarious. She gets adorable costumes. She is the one who sasses at everybody. She's not the character that you would expect to die, and not in this kind of way either.
She died she basically died off screen too. Yeah,
you find out she basically died the day that Yggdrasil fell. She gave up all of her power to save everyone in the party, plus Hendrik and the king, pretty much. She zoomed them out of there, and if she wasn't already dead, was barely holding on to life until the party caught up with her, and they were too late, pretty much. So, and in a similar way, again, it took a while for the shock of her dying to really hit me.
Yeah.
So it was when you found out how the other party members, how they're reacting to it, that really got me. For example, Eric is just straight off pissed off. She's mad. He can't process this, so he's mad at her for not being able to let him get the last word in again.
Yep.
And, he's slamming, I think it's a tree that he's next to, and which I think is a really interesting way to do it. Sylvando just doesn't know what to do because he can't handle that kind of sadness at all.
I think Hendrik feels guilt. Hendrik feels a lot of guilt because...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's really easy to point at Hendrik and say, the problem went so far beyond Hendrik's immediate actions, but it's easy to imagine Hendrik drawing conclusion that my actions caused this.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing people do when they're grieving, and they start, a lot of people start either blaming others or blaming themselves.
Yeah, you're not thinking clearly when you find out that one of your friends has died,
Especially
that's not how
to
people
save
work.
You.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, Jade's one of the only people who... Jade and Rab are really the only people who are able to handle it kinda well, and that's because they've already lost basically their entire families, so they're used to it, which is, depressing in its own way. And then there's Serena, which, oh my god. So, I, going into this game, did not expect to think that Serena would be one of my favorite characters. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I thought she would be this, the sweet healer character archetype. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought she would mostly be a straight man, effectively. Like, I thought that she would be a mostly normal one to balance out the wackiness of, like, Sylvando and Robin, Veronica.
Yeah, especially Veronica,
you know?
since Veronica is, like, the counterpart to Serena in so many ways.
Exactly, yeah. So, you have this funeral scene where her parents are devastated, obviously.
Yeah.
So she basically has to run the funeral, which, you know, like, not to get too personal here, but if you've ever had a family member pass away, there's usually the one who's composed enough, whose job it is to make sure that all that stuff runs, you know? And it's always heartbreaking to see them have to do that, where they, while everything else is falling around them, they have to stay strong for everyone else.
Yeah.
And, like, that's what Serena's doing, like, during the funeral scene, where everybody cuts off a piece of their hair and puts it in the fire. Because it's just like, okay, like, she can't let herself feel her emotions right now because, like, her parents can't do this right now. She's the only one who can, you know?
Yeah.
And then, yeah. You were going to say something?
I was just agreeing, yeah.
Okay, sorry. So, yeah, like, I'm sure that anybody who's lost a family member can empathize with that. And then, you know, you wake up in the middle of the night and she's playing the song on the harp, which is a beautiful song, for the record. And she starts talking about how the night before Yggdrasil fell, and you see the first half of this conversation right before you go to Yggdrasil, but you don't see the second half. Like, you see the part where Serena asks, do you think if our leaves were born at the same time, do you think that they'll fall at the same time? And Veronica makes a smart-ass comment about how she was always a little slow, but I hope they do. And after that, Veronica says, if something bad happens, you need to go on without me. And Serena, at that point, says, I'm not going to promise that because you're going to stay alive, pretty much is what she says. Which,
She's like,
you know...
That's an awful thing to say. Like,
yeah, like, and so she feels, like, incredibly guilty about that. But there's just... watching her have to process that guilt and her emotions about the whole thing was the point where I kind of started to break down. I guess, like, I was in disbelief and still taking it all in through the first couple of parts, but watching her break down was when I started to, like, this game, I can count the number of games that have made me, like, actually shed tears on one hand, and Dragon Quest XI is one of them. And it's the scene where where Serena was talking to the hero outside of Arborea is that scene for me. Like, it's heartbreaking, and it's, oh god.
Yeah, I think for me it was really striking to just see Serena alone, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, she comes back into the party alone, and, you know, and more independent than you've ever seen her. But that realization that, like, it's not going to be Veronica and Serena anymore. Serena is on her own now. She's not just the quieter twin, the little sister, you know. She has to be independent. She has to be the strong one, both for herself and for, you know, her parents in this funeral, for her own sister, like, and I think the moment that really struck me was when Serena says to the hero, like, something like, if you'll excuse me, I think I need to cry. And she finally, like, cries. And just,
like, I think
seeing her finally able, like, you know, she's been making herself be this strong, but she, you know, she's a young woman who just lost the closest person to her sister, like, you know, to see that humanity of like her finally being able to cry was, yeah, that was powerful. I think for me that like it was a combination of that scene and the when everyone realized that she was dead, that made me really like cry a little bit. But the whole sequence was like really
it's
tough.
A punch to the gut.
Yep.
Yeah. I think you were talking about how she was independent when she first joins the party. I think part of it is she's independent, but she was independent because she needed to be on her own. But she was expecting Veronica to come back, I think.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And I think that's how she was able to push on, was it's just like, okay, I can do this, and then I can be with Veronica again. And that's not the option anymore. She can't be with Veronica again. And, like, she lost that hope, effectively, you know, which is harsh.
Yeah.
And so, in a really cool scene, which, I mean, granted, it's a bit of a trope at this point, but it's just so well done that I don't care. Like, she cuts her hair and is like, okay, I can't be like this forever. Like, Veronica told me that she wanted me to go on without her, and I'm gonna dishonor her if I don't do that, is basically what she says. So she cuts her hair, and Veronica's staff is like, yo, dude, you want to have more magic? And you're like, sure. And she learns all of Veronica's magic at that point.
And her skill grid essentially merges with Veronica's skill grid.
Which is so cool, for the record. Like, because their skill grids are like these like three-pronged shapes, and one's one way and the other's flipped upside down.
They fit together.
So they're
basically, yeah.
And it's so good. Like, so she effectively becomes what used to be a white mage and is now like a full-blown sage.
Mm-hmm.
So she's basically like a Rab, but better.
Yeah, it's funny because she still has like sort of differences from Rab.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think definitely I didn't probably fully get used to like her at, you know, it was weird having her as sort of this dual, like having her be a sage essentially. Like in all respects it should just be more useful, but it just felt weird.
Not to mention, like, once you found out that she had those skills, the Serena's harp theme is still playing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to the skill tree and started exploring that with that music playing, and it was just super powerful to feel, because it's such a sad theme in many ways, but it's still like got like a sense of hope to it as well.
It's a calming sad.
Yeah.
It's like
I think that's a good way to put it.
It's a very like, it has the feeling to me, like it's in the context of that environment, it has the feeling to me of like, you cried and maybe you still feel like you're gonna cry again, but you're in sort of the eye, like you're in the eye of the storm, like, or the storm's passed a little bit, and you like, you're just trying to get by. You're just trying to like take the piece you can get.
I just bring it up because it's a weird thing to feel, but adding, like, exploring Veronica's skills on Serena with that music playing was just really like a powerful moment and something really memorable about the game to me, you know? So honestly, that's probably one of my favorite scenes in the game, if not my favorite.
It was one of the most powerful. It's hard for me to say it was my favorite when it was just such a
it's depressing. It's so depressing, but it's certainly, like, I feel like, again, like, we're talking about Final Fantasy VII. The most iconic scene of that game is Cloud putting Aerith into the water. Aerith, whatever. And I think one thing that Dragon Quest XI does that, you know, a lot of other RPGs don't do when they're dealing with characters that die is it's not about Veronica dying, it's about living with that grief. You know? and it makes it feel distinct. Whereas the memorable scene isn't finding, like, I mean, the memorable scene isn't Veronica like turning into sparkles and flying away. It's seeing all of these characters deal with that.
Yeah, with Final Fantasy VII, I agree. There's something memorable about Aerith's body going into the water, but there's also something memorable about how coldly Sephiroth just kills her. And that moment where you see her, like, where he just descends like this demon from above, and just she goes limp. You know,
yeah, it's the death though, I think, is the thing. Yeah. Like,
whereas with Veronica, like,
dying,
you know, we had different interpretations of the scene, and I accept that mine was incorrect. That I thought she was already dead, and you know, she was already dead, and we were looking at like some vestigial manifestation of her. But regardless, the point wasn't, you know, this like, she didn't die in some, like, you know, we didn't see her die in that moment, really. Like, we didn't see her dying moment in that dramatic way. But it was more about...
We found her corpse 3 months later, you know?
Yep. So, yeah, that was what was more... It's a different way of, you know, it's a different way of handling the death of a party member, and it's, you know, whether what resonates with people is going to be different, and what people find more powerful is going to be different depending on one's own experience. But I think it was, I really felt like, again, with Veronica, it was just like, she was not the character. If someone told me one of these characters is gonna die, I wouldn't have picked Veronica. I would have picked Rob. I would have thought, you know, I would have thought Rob would die. Like, I mean, based on the trope of FF4, Rob would have died. And FF5.
Also FF5 too.
FF4 and 5.
Well, because Tella dies too in FF4.
That's what I'm thinking. In 4, Tella dies. In 5, it's Galuf who dies.
Yeah.
You know, and 7 tells me that the sweet innocent one, Serena's gonna die.
Yeah.
No one tells me that the spunky little, like, you know, the spunky older sister is gonna die. Like,
I might have picked Hendrik too, like, if we count him, because, like, you know, he dying nobly or whatever, that could have fit.
Yep.
You know, but again, nobody would have picked Veronica. So yeah, I appreciate that they dealt with it in a different way than a lot of other games deal with. And death,
didn't you tell me that Hori said Veronica's his favorite character?
Yep, Veronica's his favorite character.
Troll.
He's a sadistic motherfucker. So anyway, everybody's still really depressed, but oh god,
this was a little bit of whiplash for me. Like, what happens next?
Oh, I think it works because there's a lot of. I think it works in a similar way to how the fish scene works.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it worked, but I was still feeling a little choked up, and then, well, you find out Veronica left a flute behind that somehow that came up on the Elder's pillow.
Yeah, well, she had it and brought it up a couple of times during the main story too, and you're like, this is important. And I think part of what makes it so effective is that you do have a little bit of breathing room in between. Like, it's not immediately right after. Like, you still have a couple of dialogue scenes before.
Oh, and I want to point out there, because this was a piece of chat that I think you said you missed, but when you're walking around in the morning with Serena, Serena's like tagging along behind you, and there's an NPC who I talked to who said something like, "Oh, Serena, you cut your hair, but weren't you growing it out so you could you could plait it like Veronica does?" And Serena says, like, "Yeah, that's what I was doing, yeah, but I don't need to follow in her footsteps anymore." And I thought that was a really powerful line for me.
Yeah. I definitely missed that one, but that's a super powerful line for sure. Yeah. So anyway, then we get a whale.
That was really funny because the flute turned into a fishing rod, and then something's biting.
When Jade puts on her bunny suit. GIF. I know I got my mind in the gutter, but that's the first thing I saw.
That face when Jade walks out in the bunny suit.
That feel when Puff Puff.
That's so good.
Oh yeah, also I had Eric in the pirate outfit, which was a little bit of mood whiplash for this whole situation.
I was glad I wasn't wearing the Marty garb, because I would have had to change. I would have been like, I can't wear this to the funeral.
This is too sad. Alexa, play it. Ole, Silvando.
Yeah, I had the only person who was in silly getup for me was, I think Rob was wearing the king outfit, which like isn't too bad, you know. It's it's at least regal.
It's an outfit that he wears normally, so you know, there's that at least. But anyway,
can we bury Veronica in the kitty outfit?
No, she turned into sparkly dust.
Oh, we still have the kitty outfit. No one else can wear it. Hendrik, you're the new party member. Wear this.
Luminary, I'll be your sword, your shield, your starward companion.
He keeps saying he'll be my sword. I gave him an axe.
So anyway, with the flute and your marbles, because I think you have most of them by this point. You have all but one, because you get the last one you get the last two in the final dungeon. Yeah. With the flute, you summon a whale, and the whale is the best.
I love the whale.
Cetacea is probably my favorite flying thing.
I have a soft spot for the bed, but
the bed's pretty great. Yeah.
But and I have a soft spot for the irony of, you know, the cart horse was Pegasus.
Being able to fly Zenithia in DQ5 is pretty cool too. But
yes, but the whale is like, I just want to give her head scritches and curl up under her wings.
Like it's derpy but majestic at the same time.
How is it possible? How can it be derp and majestic?
And not like a sarcastic, so majestic. Like it's actually kind of majestic.
Her wing, it's like something about her wing, the flight cycle of her wings is like majestic, yeah.
Yeah, and the way she goes through the sky too. And the music. It's the music. Yes. Damn. The flying whale theme is so goddamn good. Like it's one of the best themes in the game. Like if I had to pick a top 3 themes in the game, number 1 Serena's harp, number 2 Cetacea, number 3 probably the overworld theme, I would have to say. But Cetacea's theme it's so good. Like, oh man, I can't. I'm probably playing it right now.
We're sitting on the whale having this discussion.
Yeah, and it does flip, so we should all like fall off. Like when you
I love the whale flips. They're so great.
When you speed up when flying the whale, it does like corkscrews and stuff. So everybody should be falling off.
Where are, like, in a couple cutscenes, everyone's riding on the back of the whale, but when we're flying, we're not on the back of the whale.
Sorry, it looks like Jade fell off way back at Honolulu. We should go pick her up.
Gotta make a U-turn.
Oh, and looks like Silvando's now at Octagonia. Crap.
Yep.
Why is there no seatbelts on this whale?
We need some safety straps on the whale.
Please keep your head, arms, legs, feet, and lunch inside the whale at all times.
That whale is so, like, I love the whale. When are they gonna make a whale plushie?
They need to. Oh my gosh, yes.
I would import that because I would keep my shark company.
I think the only like DQ11 exclusive thing to get a plush is the spirits that are floating around. You know, I think that's it.
So at least so far. I mean,
time will bring more, but yeah. So we get the whale, and then things do become truly non-linear for a good bit. Like, there is an order that the game does expect you to do things, but there's also a whole bunch of new spots to stop at, and obviously you're going to check those out first. One of which is a mysterious tower where all the little spirits climb up it. That's weird, right?
Yeah, I found that, and you can't go in, and I was like,
oh. Yeah, that's weird. Huh. I'm sure that's not important, though, right?
No.
Okay. So yeah, so like, how much did you spend like just futzing about with the whale before going on with plot?
I did not realize. It took me a while to realize there were all these like whale way stations that you could go to. And that like they had special stuff in them. So admittedly, I didn't even find them all until like post game. But I definitely like flew around on the whale and stuff. Went to some of the things. But it's pretty like there is that pretty obvious like floating island that I went to because giant floating island.
Did you know that you could play the flute from your item menu? And so, okay, good. Because I feel like they give you a zoom point where you first summon the whale. So I feel like some people might zoom there and then get on the whale and sit through an unneeded load screen.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Oh.
So just so you know, you can summon the whale from the item menu.
Oh, yeah,
so,
I figured that out.
Okay,
I figured out how to whale.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. All right, then. Okay, if you're so good at whaling, then where do you go with the whale to continue the plot, huh? Huh? You're not a real gamer, Grill, if you can't answer that question.
Got to go to that floating island.
Oh, yeah, you already answered that. Shit. Anyway, you go to the floating island, and everybody there's dead, because this is an uplifting game about cute monsters. So, yeah, the Watcher, seeing the Watcher's stuff was cool, but also depressing, because the only one left alive is, like, the 12-year-old, or whatever the Watcher equivalent of the 12-year-old is, you know?
The baby.
Yeah, and he gives you some lore stuff saying, you need another sword in order to get into the Demon King's castle, dude. So, you need to make another sword of light. That's when you basically find that out, right?
Yep. You have the seedlings, and you look at the seedlings, and you basically see like these visions of Erdwin forging the sword. And that's when you guys decide, okay, we should make one of those too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so the Watchers we'll probably talk more about later, but their design's cute, and I like them. So yeah. All right, so I should mention that the next two things we're talking about right now, you can start these quests as early as getting Sylvando and Rob. So, like, when I was doing this, like, I had done, because you go to Gallopolis and Hotto next, and you can do these things earlier on, and then after you see the cutscenes with the Watchers, you just zoom and talk to people in a quick, not cutscene conversation, and you get the item you need, and you're done. Pretty much. But which of the two did you do first, Gallopolis or Hotto?
That's a good question. I think I did Gallopolis first.
Okay, I know I did Gallopolis first, so you want to talk about that one first, or
sure,
do you want to talk about Hotto? Okay. So the Gallopolis scene, I think, is actually really, really interesting, because they start bringing up stuff that you haven't seen in a long-ass time. Like, for example, the weird black spirit thingy you saw at the very beginning of the game. Like, you're coming into Gallopolis, and you're looking at the big red thing that's floating in the sky that looks very ominous and bad. People had been talking ever since the beginning of the game about how Erdwin's lantern, which is this red star that had been in the sky, and is supposed to be like the soul of the luminary watching over the world and protecting it, had, fallen down and is just ominously hovering over Gallopolis and looks like it's going to crash into it. Which, like, again, one thing about this game that I love is how they twist on symbols of hope and despair, I think, in that something that was supposed to be like a sign of comfort to so many people is now like threatening them, and there's something really twisted about that I find really cool,
Yep. And exactly, you throughout the game had been held up as like this symbol of like the hero, the luminary of legend watching over us, and now it's like what is happening?
Yeah, and so you go to Gallopolis, and obviously Prince Ferris will be able to handle it, right? Right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So, you agree to try to help them, but while you're doing that, the little black spirit from the beginning of the game is like walking all around, and everybody calls you crazy for noticing him. So, yeah.
That's so funny. He like walks over Prince Ferris's dick.
Anyway, so at that point, you go to the weird altar thing that had been north of Gallopolis the whole time. And one of my favorite small details about that altar is that before the fall, like, sorcerers are there praying at it, which is also really cool.
Yes.
Especially considering when you oh my god, I just realized, especially considering what that place is to monsters and stuff like that. Wow. Oh man, okay. Wow, that mine just blew a little bit. All right. So anyway, it looks like the lantern is going to land there. So Rab kind of sort of knows a little bit about it because they taught him those runes at Ping Lai. So he's like the only option they got, really. So you bring him over there, and you're there also to make sure that Prince Ferris doesn't get murdered, pretty much as well. And so you get there, and the little black spirit guy starts waving around his arms and also extra arms at it. And you talk to him, and he's like, "You can see me?" In the really creepy spread apart text, basically. And you say yes, and then a cutscene happens.
I said no.
Wait, you did? Yeah. And what did he? What did he say?
I forget. He said something like, yeah, like basically like, yes, you can.
Yeah, but basically he's surprised that you can see him.
Yeah.
And so he's bringing down, like, at that point, like, it's clear that this thing is going to crash into you at any second. Rab is just barely able to make out the word Kalasmos on the runes surrounding the lantern before, actually, of all people, Mortigan comes and slices the thing in half. So...
Was that Mortigan?
It was Mortigan. Okay. Yeah.
I thought it was the second to last Sentinel that we fought.
You can see, I would have to go back to, like, be 100% sure, but I think, like, he's in shadow, obviously, but the thing that I noticed was the outline of the sword.
Oh, then you're right. Like, yeah, then I just wasn't paying attention close enough. I'm sure it was Mortigan. Okay, so it was Mortigan who just did that thing. Yeah,
so, again, talking about a threatening villain, he's able to just destroy that thing with one swipe, so... Yeah, he means business. And Prince Ferris is like, "Oh man, our savior!" And, which is, funny. So anyway, at this point, you're like, "Hey, we helped. Can we have the forging hammer?" And one of my favorite lines is, like, Ferris is like, weren't you planning on selling that to fund next year's Sand National? Which is great. And then they give it to you. And then there's the Gallopolis scene. A lot of that doesn't really come up again until post-game, but it is really effective, I think, as well, at just being creepy,
Yep. No, I would agree.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very, like, you don't know what's going on. You know there was this threat that probably got eliminated, but...
You don't feel any better about it.
Yeah, you don't feel like it was good.
Yeah. So, I think, Hotto is next, and this part of the game also is, like, really, like, I mean, the second half of the game is just so, would you say this is the darkest Dragon Quest game?
Ooh, hard to say, but it's up there.
Like, because the only other one that I think goes anywhere close is, ironically, of all games, 7, because, there's a lot of depressing crap in 7. With, like, people getting turned to stone and dying and whatnot, but I think this is...
We also fix, like, everything in 7, so...
Yeah. I feel like there's more explicit death and a more grim tone throughout most of the game in 11 than... And the only games that we haven't even, like, seen any of are, like, 9 and 10. Yeah. So I don't know much about 9. I always kind of got the... feeling that 9 was mostly a pretty Like, I mean, there's probably depressing stuff in there too.
Yeah,
but
it's
like,
Dragon Quest.
yeah, but like nine's the game with the sassy fairy that follows you around. Like, it doesn't seem like it could be that bad.
You say that, but 5's the game where you go on adorable ghost busting adventures as a 6-year-old.
Good point, well made.
But regardless, yeah, I would say like in terms, yeah, I mean just in terms of like we lost. This game is the darkest.
Yeah. I also think the tone of most of the stories, I think, are also really have a depressing tinge to them, in that you don't get very many clear victories for such a long time, you know.
Yeah.
So, like Hado too, like, so.
Yeah, I remember we were texting while I was doing that, and I was like, I don't like this. Like, I did not like the resolution we got in that one.
Yeah, but I like that I don't like it, if that makes sense. Like, or do you not like that you don't like it?
I did not like it because everyone acted like what's her name like Miko was it like what a great leader, and now we have to let's get
we should explain what's going on. So Miko, you kind of knew, was already like a little bit of an asshole, but her son died when you first go to Hado. Like, there's really not much plot important stuff that happens to Hado in the first half. Like, you meet Veronica there, but the important stuff doesn't happen in Hado. It happens in the crypt. So Hado didn't really have a lot of story going on there for the most part. And so you find out that they need to sacrifice. It's like they need to sacrifice one of the residents in order to keep the volcano happy, or something like that.
Miko's decided we need to sacrifice someone to the volcano, and it just happens to be this one person who saw Miko going into the volcano, as you find out from her kids.
Yeah, and she's also the mom of 2 kids, which is, you know, screwed up and wrong. And you talk to all the people, and they're like, we're not okay with this, but Miko's the boss, I guess.
Yeah.
Which, I mean...
you know what, the fact that I think that is what I was so uncomfortable with, the fact that their blind obedience to Miko was not questioned in the resolution.
I think, here's the thing, though, that's how it works in real life, unfortunately. People would rather, people might not feel comfortable with what their leaders are doing, but most people don't have it in them to stand up and say something about it, and they'd rather just assume that they're making the hard choices because they're the leader, you know? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, most people are willing to be bystanders because it's way easier than making a stand, you know? So it's realistic, if depressing, again. So, the kids are... one thing that I love is that since they're kids, they haven't developed their accent all the way yet. So sometimes the boy screws up doing the haikus.
Sometimes the boy screws up sometimes, and the girl, like, doesn't really speak in haiku.
Yeah, which is great. So the boy's like, okay, you need to follow Miko here so we can figure out what the heck's going on. And turns out the dragon that supposedly killed her son is not dead. So, that's bad. And so you come to the conclusion that she's been working with the dragon the whole time, and you should stop her. So you go to talk to her about it in Hado, and the dragon shows up, and Miko, like, wants you not to kill it. But then the dragon eats Miko. So, you kill the dragon. And, you fight the dragon, it runs away, you go through a dungeon, and then you kill it in the volcano. Is that what happens?
Yeah, and I think Miko tells you that the dragon's her son.
Yeah, at that point. No. You read her diary, and then you find out that the dragon's her son.
Yeah.
You definitely read her diary, because you have to argue with the old lady who's outside her room, remember? Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, you beat the dragon, and then her son's like, oh, you freed me from being a dragon, thank you. Now, I hope my mom's doing okay. I hope my mom's doing okay. And you're like, Ooh, awkward. Yeah, so...
Like, do we want to tell him? No, he's dead.
Yeah, like, I get what you mean where, you know, people at the end are very forgiving of Miko because she just wanted to keep her son alive, I guess. And they brush over the fact that, you know, she would have murdered someone. Because that's what she would have, that's murder.
Yeah, she was
much.
Human sacrifice. No, like, you know, human sacrifice, but essentially murder to shut someone up.
Yeah, and, you know, and they're very willing to let that smooth over. I mean...
And call her a hero for
yeah.
trying to protect the village from the dragon. I'm like, number one, no. Like, number two, no! It's not, you know, like, human sacrifice is not okay, and, like, it wasn't even for the greater good. It was to cover up Miko's web of lies. And then everyone's like, oh no, our fearless leader, Miko, is gone. Like, what are we ever gonna do? I'm like, realize that she was not a good person?
Well,
but, you know...
You don't become most leader... To be an effective leader, you really can't be a good person, is the thing. Like, this is brought up in a lot of different things and stuff, but, like... It's like she let her personal stuff get in the way of doing what's best for everyone else. And that's tragic in its own way, for sure. But I feel like, I don't know, I'd need to re-see some of the cutscenes again, because it's been a while.
I agree with what you're saying, 100%. But the game didn't address that. And that is my issue. My issue is not that the game pointed out that even people who are supposed to serve the community sometimes do selfish things. My issue is that the game pretended that that didn't happen.
Yeah, I'd need to rewatch the cutscenes in order to, because it's been a long time. It's been a couple months, so I don't remember them specifically.
No, that's fair. And that was just me being like, you know, I also just didn't like her.
She's mean, so, you know, that's fair. She was, those poor kids didn't have almost...
I liked her voice actress. Like, I thought
her voice actress did a really good job, I agree. It's hard to effectively emote a character who speaks in nothing but haiku. So, you know, it's again, it's like the people who did the mermaids. It's just like, you give badass performances while you're speaking in rhyme. That's hard. So props to you for that. So when you do the Gallopolis thing, you get the forging hammer. When you do the Hado thing, you get access to the forge that they used. The last thing you need to do is go to a dungeon floating in the sky called the Battleground in order to get Orichalcum, in order to forge the sword. The Battleground was a depressing dungeon too, because there's like little lore tablets around where it's just like, man, a lot of people died fighting for this stuff. You know?
Like, basically it gives you some lore on, like, this battle that happened long time ago. Like, I guess, unclear when. I'm not sure when.
It might have been before even Erdwin was a thing.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I'd have to reread it, but, I think it's one of the best dungeons in the game, too.
It's a fantastic dungeon. It's big.
It's big.
It's annoying having to keep going back there to get Orichalcum.
Oh yeah, because it's the most effective place to get Orichalcum, and the only place where you can remine it in post-game is behind a secret door where you get one, and it won't respawn unless if you leave and come back. Thankfully, not too many things need Orichalcum, and there is some in chests, but
you run through that pretty quickly though, like if you're forging stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's a really, like, big, extensive dungeon. No, it's a great dungeon. None of the dungeons, and I'll just say, none of the dungeons in this game are hard. There's no pyramid. No. You know.
There's no pyramid, there's no cave to roan, especially, like, nothing, there's not a lot of really complex dungeons, but I do think the dungeons in the second half of the game are more what I wanted than the ones in the first half of the game, and January 1st came and went, and all we got about the info for the Switch version at this point was some clips of the voice actors in Japanese, which is cool and all, but we don't know what kind of content they're going to add to the Switch version, so we'll save that for later about our wishes and whatnot. So, basically the point being is that these are the kind of dungeons I wanted. Like, I liked Gildenhall, I liked the Battleground, I liked the final dungeon a lot. Going through the sewers in Heliodor and the castle as well, like it's a dungeon, I thought was really cool. What other ones were there? Were there any other dungeons in the second half? Oh, I guess going up the mountain, kind of. And, oh, the volcano. The volcano was cool, too.
Yeah, the volcano. Yeah. You revisited a lot of places.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's actually one thing I do like about the second half of the game, is that if you want to, you can revisit all these places, find lots of treasure, find lots of monsters and stuff. But if you don't want to do that, you don't really have to.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. Great in terms of pacing as well. But anyway, so I like the scene where you forged the sword. I think it's...
Yeah.
They used it a lot in the promotion for the game, and I think it's clear why. Because it's just cool. Like, seeing you finally hold the sword in your hand is also really nice.
Yep.
Except its stats aren't that great.
I was doing great swords, man. I didn't want that. Get that out of here.
Did you use it for when you were fighting the final boss, at least?
Did I? No.
But it's the legendary sword and crap. You went through like 2 dungeons and destroyed the politics of an entire city in order to build that thing, and you're just gonna dump it in the equipment bag?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Look at how big my greatsword is.
It's pretty big, that's true.
It looks so cool on my back.
At that point, can you just go to the final dungeon?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay, so... final dungeon, you go in and then you fight...
this was a big dungeon. This was a...
Oh, well, before you even get in, you fight... Before you go in, you fight a Lost Leader, which is...
It's not just the Lost Leader, it's the less sinister spectral other than Jasper.
Yeah, but that design, like that enemy is a big deal, I guess is the thing.
Yeah, they basically took the design of Durin/Nocturnus from DQ6, the model that was in DQ Heroes 2, and I think a lot. By the way, we didn't say this before. I think a lot of models in this game were based on models from DQ Heroes 2.
They certainly look relatively similar. I don't know
if they
how
weren't
much
directly
would've been changed.
recycled. I mean, I think you can reuse assets. I'm sure to some degree,
Yeah.
whether or not it's 1-to-1, who knows?
Yeah, but you'd be surprised too how often developers remake stuff that's not necessary. Like, if you look up Mario games, for example, there's so many different models for Mario in different versions of the game. It's just like, if you've already got one done, why pay your developers more to make a brand new model for Mario and not just reuse one from like Mario Tennis or something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I do think that the Lost Leaders were an enemy in DQ6, like random encounters, but they're threatening. They're big and they've got weird swords and they're tall and they've got abs and they're shredded. And walking into one right before you go to even open the door was certainly a surprise.
Yeah.
I'm honestly shocked that they didn't make Nocturnus a super boss if they already had the model in there, you know.
Yeah, I guess it would have. Yeah, that. Well, we'll get to like the post game stuff and like, but we should let's put a bookmark there and like there weren't really legacy bosses. I'll just say that.
No.
Like we can talk about what there was, but I kind of missed legacy bosses, but I'm also kind of a nostalgia whore, so.
I mean, the game nostalgia whores in different ways.
Yes.
And it makes sense, but yeah, we should put a bookmark in that. Anyway, so also when you beat him, then Jasper is like
Jasper's watching from the balcony. You know, he cleverly edited the camera shot to cut out like the bucket of popcorn and the slurp juice.
Hendrik just shouts at him when you walk in there too.
Yes, that was great. He's like, Jasper, I love you. I mean, I'm totally gonna come beat you up.
The final dungeon is easily the best one in the game.
It's huge. It takes a long time to get through.
It's what I really wanted, I think, at that point. It's multi-layered, and there's so many cool things about it, because as you fly, like, there's this central room in the middle, where at first there are these two dragon riders. And when you get in there, you can get on them, but there's nothing to fly to, so you're like, what the hell?
Yeah, because the ceiling's blocked, yeah.
Yeah, then, when you go up a level, you get to that same room, up a floor, and there's this jewel floor on the ground, and it breaks. And if you fall down, you can then ride the dragon back up the floor, which is so cool, because not only does it give you this sense that you're making progress in the dungeon, but if you ever need to leave to save or heal, you get a shortcut back up.
Yes.
Which is so cool.
Because it's a long dungeon. Like, I think I did it I can't remember if I did it in one sitting, but, like, it was, you know, it's
a 2-hour dungeon playing in normally, for sure. Yep. Yeah. And there's, like, the monsters in there are really cool, obviously. Like, you get the really big threats, you know. Like, you're finally running into stuff like King Cure Slimes, and you get Lost Leaders, I think, are there. You know, hard versions of the Iron Maiden type enemies, like, not minor threats. And
Lucifers,
you know,
or the Great Lucifers, whichever it was.
Yeah, and it also, you have to learn to navigate it too, because you get teleported around all over the place too. There's lots of secrets to find. And I also just really enjoyed going into that center room where they kept on dropping jewels for free every time you kept on going down there, it's a great place to farm them. So yeah, it's just a really cool area. Does anything, I don't remember if there's really many cutscenes before the very end.
No,
are there?
I don't think so. I think you just like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get to the point and you think you're about to walk into the throne room and fight Morrigan. And, oh, look at that, it's Veronica!
Yeah. That was a trip.
That was so twisted. Where you see her and she's crying, and I knew something was up. And she's like, why did you let me... It's just like, why did you let me die is something I think that she says.
The first thing she says is she's like... You're like, Veronica. And she's like, can I ask you to die? Like,
yeah.
And
then she says something like, you let me die, or something like that. And then what I really liked is that Serena had none of it. She starts playing the harp, which makes the fake Veronica start freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says like get out of here, basically, which I thought was really, really cool. Like, it was just a really, really, I think, like, it showed that she wasn't gonna let Morrigan play her like that. Mm-hmm. I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was strength. It took a lot of strength, I'm sure, because she essentially had to watch her sister vanish again.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. She does say, "Can I ask you to die?" Oh my gosh, and she looks so creepy when she does it too.
Yeah, her face is really like. Whew. No, that was a weird. That was like, I mean, weird in a good way. It was like
well, it's Jasper fucking with you,
scene.
Is the big. Yeah, because Hendricks just like, Jasper, get the hell out here,
yeah.
and then you finally fight him, and like, I gotta say, Jasper's monster form is really cool, like with the devil wings and all that.
Yep.
Like, it is all like, it's clear that he's gone, which is tragic in its own way, you know, like, because one of the things is like you have the cool boss fight and whatnot, and then. He dies, and Hendricks is like, I'm done with you. You walk through the door, and then Jasper, turns out he wasn't dead, and he summons, like, specters of the old bosses to try to stop you. And then Hendrik smacks him in cutscene or whatever, and he says something to Jasper along the lines of, "I always thought you were the better one," effectively.
Yep.
And what was really powerful about that scene to me is that Jasper only realizes when it's too late that it didn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
You know, when he realized that, Hendrik didn't think of him as better than Jasper, and they could have worked together and everything could have turned out all right. Jasper doesn't realize that. Jasper, because he's like, "Oh, Master, give me another chance," and Mordegon's like done with him. And Jasper only then realizes that Mordegon didn't value Jasper because of Jasper. He valued Jasper to the point to which Jasper could work for him.
Yep.
Basically, So when he realized it was too late for him to realize that, it could have been better than this. Which, to see that you missed your chance and you can't make it better, that was just really powerful to me,
Yep. No, I agree. It was like Jasper could have had the validation he needed without becoming evil, but
yeah, basically.
he couldn't see it. He couldn't see that he had people who valued him, and that the person he looked up to someone, but that turned into resentment, and it didn't need to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And it's also heartbreaking to me that he floats away with the monster sparkles instead of the gold sparkles that normal people do.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. That's an attention to detail I didn't pick up on, but yeah. No, I believe.
So he had let himself get so caught up in his rage that he became a literal monster.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just heartbreaking. That's why I think Jasper's a good villain, in that you can empathize with him but not sympathize with him. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep. There's absolutely a difference.
Yeah, you understand his emotions perfectly. You feel his anger, you feel his jealousy and his resentment. But he made his bed, and while things could have turned out differently for him, you're beyond the point. And that's what I think is the thing that makes Hendricks' reaction so good with it, is that while Hendricks upset that it happened, he's made peace with the fact that this is Jasper's choice, and it's just he made a bad choice, and you can't change that anymore as well,
Yeah, no, he's clearly sad, but I feel like to an extent Hendrik was mourning Jasper, Hendrik was pre-grieving Jasper's death, because he lost the before we, in that period before we met, we met back up with Hendrik.
Yeah.
I think that's when he was able to sort of pre-grieve Jasper's death in losing the person he saw as a friend. Yeah.
Because the Jasper that he was close with was gone by the time, the hero came back, Yeah. And I think, we argued a bit about DQ8 with Marcello. I think that part of what made Jasper work for me in a way that Marcello almost but didn't quite work for me is that it felt like you were supposed to feel like Marcello was always the douchebag who had a point, basically. Not that he wasn't wrong about the church being crappy, but the thing is that when he lost everything, him walking away, the way he did, it's a powerful scene, but honestly, my opinion of him is colored because maybe if I had played the original PS2 version and he just ended like that, I would think differently. But since I played the 3DS version first and he just comes back and everybody just sort of ignores the crappy things he did.
Yeah, that was just...
Yeah, I didn't like that at all. Where he's just, "Oh, I'm back because fan service and now I leave again, bye." Yeah, it's just we're gonna ignore all the stuff you did, and the trying to murder us and the trying to murder and the actual murdering you did and all that stuff, It just, he didn't seek, the difference to me, I think, is that Jasper realized that he could have had redemption too late. Marcello didn't realize that he needed redemption at all, but still was treated like he got it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So, yeah. So anyway, I felt like it was a really fitting thing to walk into the final boss, too. You know,
Yes.
like with that feeling.
Yeah.
So,
I would agree.
what do you think of Mordegon's, the form you fight Mordegon in first? Because
the beefcake form.
Because you don't fight his first form here.
You don't fight the form that he manifested in at the when you saw him at Yggdrasil.
Like Wizard Mordegon and Beefcake Mordegon.
Yeah.
You jump straight to Beefcake Mordegon. Like, I like it, but it's gross. But that's why I like it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It reminds me a lot of the second form of Mortimer in DQ6, actually.
Yeah, there's a lot of Mortimer vibes for the first two forms, at least, not the last form.
Yeah.
With Mordegon. Yeah. But yeah, like the Beefcake, it's just like, okay, he definitely looks, and the sword is like again, we mentioned this last time. The corrupted sword of light is so cool.
Oh, it's so creepy though.
Yeah. So anyway, like at that point, like his dialogue at that point, I don't think was anything. Like, I don't remember what he specifically said, but the fight itself, like the first form, okay, you beat him up. It's the second form I really, really liked. Do you agree?
Yes, that was a cool form because and again, that sort of reminded me of Mortimer from DQ6 in the sense that you had two targets and you know, you don't know from the like it's hard to know like I figured, okay, I should try to take these down roughly equally, but I actually didn't quite do it well enough, and I accidentally killed. So there's the Lord of Shadows half and the Mordragon half, right? Is that what it was?
Which is a great name.
Yeah, Mordragon. I was kind of like, okay, that's a good. They got a good pun for a boss name. We complained about some of them, but all right, they got a good one. But yeah, Mordragon. I accidentally killed Lord of Shadows before Mordegon, and Mordragon was able to zing him. And
oh shit.
Yeah, I mean it was zing, so it wasn't full health, but you know it was still a pretty good chunk of health he came back with. I was actually surprised at how much he came back with.
Was his cursor white or was it like yellow when he was brought back with the zing?
I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was I mean it was definitely. Fight went on for a little while longer. Not it wasn't crazy, but. It went on.
I died the first time I tried to fight him.
Oh really?
Because it's not an easy fight.
Yeah, I was higher level than you, but yeah, no, it wasn't a super easy fight. No.
Yeah. Like I mean, you brought up Mortimer from DQ6. Like I think that the two-headed snake is way cooler because
I would agree.
Mortimer is just Andros. You know. Yeah.
But like Mortimer cracks the screen. He broke my DS. But no, I agree that like the two-headed dragon snake thing is like it's a cool design.
It's made of bone and it's like it's so cool. Like yeah, I think that's honestly one of my top 3 final boss designs for Dragon Quest villains. Like him and Sorrow. Like nothing beats Sorrow for me, but it's up there, top 3 for sure. I'd probably go with the Dragon Lord just in terms of design for the 3rd spot. But yeah, and one thing that I really like is when you win. Well, one thing that's interesting, I should say. When you win, you fly out on the whale and the credits roll. That's it. That's the end. There's no, which is strange because if you've played Dragon Quest before, you usually get a walk around before the end of the game, like a bit, but I felt that it was fitting in this case, you know, especially since the credits music they play is the Flying Whale theme, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, how did you feel about the game effectively ending there, you know?
I was surprised. I was caught off guard. I did not expect, like, you know, they sort of did the victory tour in cutscenes in the credits, like, silently, you know?
Yeah, which I thought was real. I thought that helped a lot.
That
because...
worked. Yeah, no, I was surprised at how well I thought that worked, but I was also like, oh, we're not doing like any sort of interactive victory tour this time. Okay.
I liked it because it made it clear that there was still stuff left to do.
Yes. Which the game, like, pretty much, doesn't it just say it right off the bat? It's like, to be continued.
Like, I'm pretty sure, and there's also the scene of the spirit waving by a gear thingy, so you know there's more to go. You know you're not done yet. But, even if, like, you're not familiar with Dragon Quest, and you end the game here, and you see the end, and you see the credits, and you think, I'm done, I think that's a satisfying way for it to end, Like, it is...
And I liked the way the credits showed everyone going home and having a little bit of closure. Like, I think Mia wakes up and Eric's like, yeah, and they have a cute little sibling interaction. Serena goes home to her parents.
I think Sylvando and his dad
his dad have antics with the Soldiers of Smile. I remember, like, the Soldiers of Smile are super happy to see Sylv. Hendrik goes back to the king. What's the other? Rob and Jade, where the hell did they go? I think, Jade's reunited with her father. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know what happens if you bring her back to the king, like, at all, because I never tried.
Yeah, I don't know if she can interact with him.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I'm not sure at all. That's something that when I do replay the game, because I definitely want to do it, I'd need to try. But yeah, it's such a, like, the fact that it's like you went through a lot of crap and it's done, I think is the feeling that you have. Like, it's over. We won, Like,
I remember Rob lays flowers on Eleanor and Erdwin's grave. That's what he did.
Oh, yeah.
So that was like his
sweet.
Sort of closure,
Yeah, like, he feels like he can rest.
Because he also says, I forget if it's in party chat or in dialogue, that his goal for when this is all done is to rebuild Dundrasil. Like, he knows it's going to take a long time, but that's his goal.
Yeah, he says, I'm pretty sure that's in dialogue at least once. He mentions it a couple of times. So, yeah, but it's hard to talk about this ending specifically because I think we both knew that there was a lot more to go, And
we've been going for a while now. I think we need to
take a break. Yeah, because even though we've been through the first half of the game and we've been through the second half of the game, little did you know there's a third half of the game to talk about. And
play the curse music.
Yeah, but post-game in this game is amazing. So we're going to take a break, and I don't know when the hell we're going to have time to record the next part, but we're going to talk about the true ending of the game then. So we'll see you all later. Good night.
Bye.